I always tell people, I'm like, you know what the one secret to success is that you absolutely have to know if you want to be successful. Like, the secret is that
Aaron Gwin is a mountain biking legend. He started in BMX and motocross before switching to downhill in 2008, where he got a top 10 at his first ever World Cup.
He's less than a second off. How's Aaron Gwin doing it?
He has since won 8 U.S. national championships, 5 World Cup overall titles. He has 20 World Cup wins, and even won a World Cup without a chain.
With no chain, look at the time. Aaron Gwin does the impossible here.
Gwin has had some setbacks over the last few years, but he is back and ready to win again.
I feel like I still can win.
Ken Roczen the other day, and he was saying that he's thinking about like coming over to downhill.
And I could be surprised. I think he would have a really difficult time. I was like, I got a bike with your name on it. Just tell me when and where. And I was like, Canyon, get out of the way. He's mine. Let's do it. Getting to the top of that with Cody and just laughing and being like, dude, there's no way I'm ever riding down something like that. You're going to die. Oh man, like I'd rather be anywhere else but here.
I would have never thought that was something that fazed you. Who are some of the riders that you feel are like the gnarliest?
The very first name that instantly pops into my head that's not even close, I feel like, to me, is Sam Hill. I could never believe the lines that dude could hold. I won by 8 seconds. I had different lines all over the track than what everybody else had. And I would just stand on the side of the track and kind of laugh.
What's been the best bike that you've ridden?
That bike was really harsh. That bike kind of sucked to ride.
After you got injured in 2018, that season you won that Whitey, and then the end of the year, you mentioned just now that you didn't have the opportunity to continue with them. What actually happened there? But first, guys, I need to ask you a huge favor to please like and subscribe. And if you're feeling generous, drop a comment. This makes such a huge difference to the YouTube algorithm. And at this stage, we need all the help we can get, because the bigger the podcast gets, the bigger the guests. Back to this episode. Sweet. Dude, Aaron Gwin, thanks for coming on. I wanted to jump straight in and ask you, how does it feel to jump on the scene and get a top 10 at your first ever World Cup?
It was crazy, man. It was it was pretty cool. For me, it was a lot of years of hard work, honestly, but it was like, wow, like I kind of finally am like doing it. I did never expect that it would be downhill mountain biking would be the thing that I landed on. Growing up racing BMX, and then motocross was like always the thing, through my teenage years that I was really aiming at trying to do for a living. And so yeah, it was, I had a couple of years of working some really tough jobs before I got into downhill. So yeah, I kind of always tell the story. I'm like, I remember laying in bed, bouncing in that night. I think it started raining after the race. And I was actually in like a bunk bed. I was up with Yeti, and we were all shoved into like a little room. And I was laying on the top bunk, and the window was cracked, and I was just listening to the rain outside. And I was like, man, like crazy. Did that just happen? Like, what am I doing? It was like pretty wild, but yeah, it was cool, man. It was man, a lot of years of grind and hard work and struggle and ups and downs, from basically a kid to when I was 20 years old when that happened, to like try to succeed at making a living on 2 wheels. And that was the first time where I was like, wow, this might actually work out.
I think you ruffled some feathers that day for sure. And before I actually started downhill in 2010, and that tipping point was one of the first videos that I watched, and obviously that was in there. You getting the top 10. I remember thinking like, man, that's insane. Like, and like I think it gave a lot of people a bit of false hope.
Yes,
like, yeah, sweet, you can just rock up.
Yeah, tough one for sure. I think, yeah, I mean, everybody knows, I've told the story a bunch of times, but I think everybody saw quick success. But for me, for sure, it was, man, it was, 15 years of racing. I was 20 years old at the time. So 16 years of racing, basically get to that point, and definitely probably 10 years of like really working hard and trying to figure it out. Now that I'm a bit older, 10 years doesn't actually sound like that long anymore, but at the time it was, half my life or whatever of like really trying to make that happen. So it was, it definitely was not like a overnight success. It was, a lot of racing and time and effort to have that quick success in downhill for sure.
I mean, you've touched on these topics before in other interviews, but maybe you can just give everyone a little rundown of what led you onto the path of two wheels, from a kid.
Yeah, I think from a kid, long story short, I guess I just had a ton of energy as a kid. My parents were like trying to get you to sleep at night was just not happening. And so they'd take me to the park and stuff like as much as they could and just like run me out of the park. So I would try to sleep at night. And one of the parks that we went to in Desert Hot Springs out in California, it was about 15 minutes from our house. They had a BMX track, like kind of adjoined to the park. And I guess when I was like 3-4 years old, we were there, swinging on the swings or something like that. And I always wanted to like get on the BMX track and go ride. It looked fun. And so my parents got me a bike I don't remember, it was my 4th birthday, somewhere around then, and took me to the track and just started riding. And they were stoked because I would just do laps nonstop and then I would actually sleep at night. So it kind of started there. My dad definitely had a passion for two wheels. I remember we always had this old like broken down dirt bike in our backyard. I never actually saw the thing run, but it was back there for quite a few years, and I'd always go sit on it. And he was really into street bikes when I was a little kid. Even my mom rode before she had me. And so his dream was always to like race, street bikes, like a MotoGP type of thing. And so he never got the opportunity to do it, but he always had bikes. So like when he'd take me to school when I was a little kid, he had an old Honda Hawk motorcycle, and he'd throw me on the back of that every morning and like take me to school or take me to the babysitters real early before he went to work. So kind of always grew up like on a motor and two wheels, and my dad being into it. So when I started riding BMX, like I just I picked it up so quick. And I remember I grew up out in the desert in Morongo Valley. It's a really small desert town kind of in the middle of nowhere, just north of Palm Springs. And it pretty much always was dry, never rained. And I remember right around the same age when I was 4 or so, it rained one day and my parents went out in the yard with me and we built like 2 jumps, and they were like the equivalent of like a roller, basically. It wasn't anything fancy, but pretty much from that day on, dude, it was like every day when I got back from school, I was in the yard digging and riding my bike and going to the BMX track. And just that was all I ever wanted to do. Like our backyard by the time I was like 12 was completely demolished. Like every inch of our yard was like jumps and tracks and stuff. So my parents were really cool about letting me destroy the yard for sure. But anyways, yeah, so it started there, and then I raced BMX real serious till I was about 8, which seems like almost no time, but in the matter of that 4 years, by the time I was 8, I was riding for Dan's Competition, which is like a big mail order BMX company out of Ohio. They had a big factory team that I was on, and I was like flying around the country, and I raced the ABA National Series and the NBL National Series. So it was like really busy. Did a ton of racing, and then I was kind of just like at the point at 8 where I was like, man, I just kind of want to be a kid and like hang out with my friends a little bit more and not travel and not do so much.
That's
And,
insane.
so yeah, I played baseball for a few years and football, did a few things, and then I got into motocross when I was 12. Motocross was always the thing I really wanted to do. My parents were just both in the medical industry. My mom was a nurse, my dad's a physical therapist, and my dad especially, he was a physical therapist at the hospital in Palm Springs, which is the closest big hospital to like Glamis and Ocotillo Wells, which are like big free riding kind of spots in California. So he'd see all the really gnarly injuries coming back from the desert. And I think he was always like, man, I don't really want you to be one of those guys. And so they, and we didn't have a ton of money. So motocross was really expensive. And we were, that was going to be a big stretch for us to try to afford having a dirt bike compared to a bicycle. So it took a little while for me to kind of convince them My dad especially. And but yeah, he got me a dirt bike for my 12th birthday, and we started riding. And sure enough, within a year we were gung ho, man. We were getting after it, racing a bunch of races and chasing the dream till about 17, and had a couple of big injuries towards the end of that motocross stint. And I think I was just at the point as a man, like in my maturity too, where just the kind of the pressure, knowing my parents were spending every dollar and minute of time on trying to
Mm,
help me, and just having the setback after setback, and kind of racing's always been something that has been difficult for me, like just nerves wise. Like it's always been kind of stressful. I love riding, but the racing side of things has always been like, I don't wake up on race morning just like, I can't wait to race today. I'm usually just like, oh man, like I'd rather be anywhere else but here. And that's
interesting.
definitely changed later in my downhill career as I've just kind of matured and chilled out a little bit. But as a kid, it was just I think I didn't understand really maybe fully what I had. And I just kind of wanted to not have to feel that stress as much anymore. And so I kind of went into just working some normal jobs from like 17 to 20. And I think during those years, I realized pretty quick, like, man, I really want to race. It's a lot better than digging ditches or doing some of the other stuff that I was doing. And, I kind of thought that window had probably passed. So when downhill kind of came up randomly and I was good at it straight away, it was like, I think I had a renewed view and appreciation for what I was trying to do, and a love of what I was trying to do, that kind of was like I was more than willing to push through the stress of racing to try to make a career out of, what I loved. So, man, I was all in. Like I was, yeah, I remember those first couple of years, like it was, I felt like I was, I don't want to sound cheesy, but kind of racing for my, survival or putting food on the table, so to speak. I was like, I really want this to work out. Like I am gonna put absolutely everything into it. So it was, yeah, crazy that it worked out, man. It was, yeah, wild.
It's crazy, like that you say that, like also with the nerves and stuff, and how you struggled with that earlier on in your career, because like I mean that's something that I've struggled with, and I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, which in a way is, I guess, a good thing in a way, because it means you care, but at the same time, it kind of makes it tough sometimes when you trying to perform at your best.
yeah,
Um, but it's interesting because like in those years, like 2011, 12, like that those years, it was insane. Like I would have never thought that that was something that phased you,
yeah,
because you always looked so like locked in, and it always looked like kind. I don't want to say easy, but it kind of looked like it
yeah,
was coming easy.
for sure. Yeah, it's a weird one with me, man. Like I perform really well under pressure. Thankfully, the nerves don't affect like my performance. Not to say that they never do, like, you're always battling it, but I feel like I've been really good at taking that and then just performing no matter what. But I wouldn't say it was, like, fun for a long time, like, it was fun when it was over and you got the result and you were like, "Huh, okay, like, sweet," like, and I enjoyed parts of the weekend, but race days were just always, pretty stressful. And I don't know if you would find another motorsport if you have somebody that wants to win as bad as I wanted to win and put as much into it as we put into it. I would think that that was kind of the case probably for a lot of guys in other sports too. You're pretty mission focused, like to get it done. So thankfully, like as miserable as I felt at times, when it was time to roll out of the gate, like there's no messing around. I could lock in and just make it happen. So honestly, by the time I got into the gate, it was just a relief. I was like, finally, it's time to like throw down and get this over with. Waiting in the pits for 7 hours leading up to your run was like not very fun.
That's yeah, it's very interesting because that's the same way that I feel. Like obviously I wasn't winning World Cups, but still it's like everyone I think feels it to a degree.
Yeah.
And people would often ask like, oh, what's your favorite race, or which race did you enjoy the most? And I think that's the same kind of answer as like, I love riding, but the racing part, like you like the end, but you like the result, but the racing part is pretty stressful, and obviously even more stressful in your situation when, you know, you're fighting for a championship or something like that.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. Yeah, and the race itself, I think, is like they're just hard, man. If you're racing that hard, like it's you're doing something kind of dangerous. So there's a bit of nerves in that you're just like you're kind of doing something gnarly and you could get hurt. And then there's the other fact that like you're just gonna absolutely tap yourself out energy wise. Like you're just gonna run max heart rate for 4 minutes or whatever and suffer your way down the hill. It's like I've had some runs where there's things that happen in the run where you're like, "Oh, that's cool," but for the most part, it's like kinda controlled suffering until the finish line. So it's like, riding at that pace and that intensity level is, it is fun, but it's different than just riding a practice lap for sure. There's, so much effort and preparation that goes into it that it's kind of a weird feeling, like you're doing it, but you're kinda just going through the motions and focusing,
mm.
at least for me, on the effort you put out, and then you cross the finish line, and then it's like you figure it out from there.
What was the I mean, what was the secret in your sort of peak of your career when you were able to, when you were winning like multiple World Cups a year and like because it seemed you kind of seemed like unstoppable at a time and everyone was you were on the radar and everyone was talking about like winning and
Yeah,
like you did some pretty ridiculous things, like winning by 8 seconds pretty much in Val d'Isole in a dry race, which is just like unheard of. And then like winning obviously without a chain, which we'll chat about. But
yes.
like, yeah, what do you think it was like your mindset, your training? Like, what do you think was the kind of defining factor that made you so good at that time?
I think it was a little bit of everything. It's funny, I've been teaching some riding clinics lately, and I always get a group together and everybody comes and they think they're gonna hear something from me that is gonna completely blow their minds and like change everything they've ever thought about bike riding. And we definitely like break off some good knowledge. But I always tell people, I'm like, you know what the one secret to success is that you absolutely have to know if you want to be successful. Like this is the biggest, most important thing. And I can see them, they always get excited. They're like, what is it? And I'm like, the secret is that there's no secret. It's like you just have to do a lot of things right for a long time for things to go that well, like to get that good. So it's you got to check all the boxes. Like I felt like when I was dominating, it was my speed was really good. I think my background and the way I looked at a track was different than most people, especially when it comes to line selection and things. I know that race in Val d'Isole that I won by 8 seconds, like I had different lines all over the track than what everybody else had. And I would just stand on the side of the track and kind of laugh when I watched the guys just bomb through the main line and just beat themselves to death. And I would just be like lining things up 3 turns further up to be on a different part of the track where it's super smooth and way straighter and way easier. And I just felt like all the way down the track, I had a different setup to everything where I just wasn't battling things like they were. And I was just good at riding rough stuff. Like I was strong. I feel like my fitness took me probably 3 years to get to where I needed it to be to win races. I remember when I first started racing in 2008, even at Mount St. Anne, I didn't feel like I rode my fastest there, but I just wasn't fit enough to ride to my
Mhm.
potential yet. So it took me a few years to get that. So I feel like I looked at a track different. I had really good lines. I had really good skills, I think, from motocross and other things too, like the speed I could carry and like how fast I could hit stuff. My fitness was good. I think my bike setup was really good when I was on that trek. I had a really good team. Like I said, I put absolutely everything into it. Back then it was a little different too. Like guys were, maybe not checking all the boxes quite as much. You had some guys that were known for being strong trainers and some guys that were known for being really fast on the track.
Mm.
And I mean, I was walking the track every single day after practice. Like now everybody does all of that stuff and everybody and their brother's got a cell phone on the side of the track, you know, filming every single line. So you can't hide anything anymore, which is pretty annoying. Everybody ends up on the same lines and people just know what to look for a bit more now too. But yeah, I think it was everything. It was the culmination of, like I said, 15 years of effort and riding experience kind of coming together. fitness, bike setup, team. Like I just had everything pretty locked in. So, um, it was a hard package to beat for sure. And I feel
And
like honestly, like I should have dominated a lot more than I did. I left a lot of races on the table. I think it was 2011. I should have won every race that year, like for sure. I think I was winning Fort William by like 6 seconds or
yeah,
something.
I
I
remember that.
crashed at the bottom, and then Lebrez, I think, was the championship round. And I think I won qualifying and just rode so nervous in the finals and just completely jacked it up and got third. But I should have smoked everybody that weekend. Even world champs that year. Like this will not be a popular statement, but I think I beat Danny by like 7 seconds in qualifying at Chambéry
Mm.
or something like that in the dry. And when it rained, I think I was on like the same second as he was, halfway down the track. And I remember just really being conservative at the top part of the track because it's where all the sketchy stuff was. And my strong sections were towards the bottom where the ruts were a bit bigger and it was less that like Rudy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like 2 turns away from the halfway point, and my plan in my head was like turn it on when you basically get across that bridge, and I crashed the corner right before it. So I don't know that I would have won that, but it would have been a lot closer than it was for sure. So same thing in 2012. Like I don't know, but coulda, shoulda, woulda. You could talk to Greg or Danny or any of those guys too. There's a whole bunch of races that got away, but yeah, we had a good run for sure, and it would have been nice to get a few more. Like,
I mean, I remember like I can't remember exactly what year it was, but when you were getting close to Greg's record, and I was like, I thought there's no chance, like you're gonna like blow by.
yeah,
But yeah, unfortunately, injuries and circumstances caught up to you. But I think that downhill is it's pretty ridiculous. Like, I don't think there are many sports that have the variables that downhill have. For someone to sustain a long career at the top I mean, in any sport, it's tough, but I think maybe like moto could be compared to a degree and maybe BMX. But still, like with the variables, like in terms of every track is totally unique. Conditions are always different. You're dealing with roots and rocks and like, whereas I feel like, I mean, I raced moto as well when I was younger. And so like motocross is always, I mean, it obviously ruts up and stuff, but a motocross track is a motocross track. Like it's, obviously you got different turns and stuff, but, and the thing is with downhill, you only have one chance.
yeah,
Like you get down to your final, and like what other sport do you have that pressure where you've got literally one shot to make this
yeah,
happen, and
yeah,
anything goes wrong, and that's all she wrote.
yeah, for sure. It is tricky. Like, yeah, so many things changing, so many variables, and it's one race. It's a short lap, and the times are generally so tight that a little mistake is like, you're out. It'd be like I don't know if you could compare it because motocross tracks, like maybe an outdoor track, I don't know, but it'd be like doing a 2-lap sprint race with all the top guys. Um, and then
Mental.
some races, you're just gonna like take the watering truck out and just douse the track right before that hot lap. It's just like, I don't know, like, and spend a bunch of time in 6 hours off the track and then just go out and do 1 lap or so. It's like, yeah, it's a tricky one to be consistent for sure. So it's so impressive, like guys like Greg that have been able to do it and win races for the span of years he's been able to do it is pretty crazy, man. But yeah, I don't know, it's a funny thing. It's like a lot goes into it for sure. And yeah, I would have thought that I would have blown by that record too. It's been uh, I just have to laugh at it. I'm pretty competitive, so I really don't like how the last 5 or so years have gone. But I look at the circumstances and how the injuries have happened, and just like it's just like, yeah, sometimes you're on the winning side of things where you feel like you can do no wrong. And I remember having really big crashes during those years that I was winning, not a lot, but occasionally, and you just
Mhm.
get up and everything was fine. And it feels like the last 5 years, like I'll just have a little tip over and just like blow something out, or like there's just circumstances are just crazy. Like you said, to have the consistency, there's so many variables, and it's so easy to hit the ground. And sometimes you hit the ground and it's like you can cartwheel your way down the track and everything's fine, and sometimes you tip over and you're out for 4 months. It's like it's a hard one to be consistent at.
Yeah, it felt like you got seriously unlucky, like from pretty much 2018, like onwards. I remember you won Lazinge, and then
Yeah.
afterwards you had that thumb injury, and it was kind of like ever since then it was like kind of like up and down. You'd have a little injury and like not that serious until obviously 2023 was a big one, but and then you'd like come back and then there would be something else that happens again.
Yeah.
And then I really thought like, was it 22? I think, yeah, 22, you had a really good year.
Mhm.
Um, and I was kind of thinking like, yeah, 23, like could be the year that you start winning again. And then
Yeah,
like first race, like,
I know.
so, so talk to me about that. And like, man, that must have been devastating.
Yeah, it's hard for sure, but I think, I've got a lot of other things going on in life, married now, like, got a lot of other good things, so I try not to dwell on it too much. Part of me is so competitive, even talking about the Danny run, like, complete no disrespect to Danny, it was the sickest run I've ever seen. I just watched it on YouTube the other day, and I was like, "Dude, that was insane," and maybe he would've smoked me, I don't know. Um But I have that side where I'm just like, "Dude, I just wanna, like, be the Terminator and win every race forever." That's what you train for, right?
Yeah.
So it's really hard for me sometimes to be like, accept the circumstances, but it's like you have to. It is what it is. Like, the run like I said, I've chosen to just kinda, like, yeah, that's life, like, kinda laugh about it. At motocross, honestly, I went through a very similar streak. It wasn't as long, it was only maybe 2 years, but it was just, like, every time you had, like, 1 good week almost, it was like the next week there was an injury, and it was always weird circumstances, same things, like, you check up for a big double on your first lap in a race, and some dude behind you jumps and lands on your back and, whatever, you break an arm, or the wind blows you just off the side of this jump and there's a hay bale right in the perfect spot. Or it was just always something that was like, ah, man, like it's just those variables when you're racing and going that fast that are, you have those moments. Sometimes you go a couple years and you're like, you have a couple close calls and you're like, whoa, that
Mm.
was about an inch away from maybe being a season ender. And you pull
Yeah.
it off and you're like, you just get away with those. And then there's years where it's like every one of those close calls, you just happen to be an inch the wrong way. And it's like, injury after injury. So, yeah, the 23 one with my elbow, man, that was a tough one because it was like you said, and I think 18 when I won in Croatia, my last win, I felt really good. I felt like I was really building into that year strong. I felt like I still had quite a ways to go from that win to where I feel like I would have been at my best that year. Like I thought I would probably peak around mid-season. Um, and we went to Fort William. I think I was leading qualifying and got a flat and ended up still qualifying 8th or something like that. Finals, I think I was leading as well. Like I was green on all the splits, and I came into that little man-made rock garden, kind of like in the middle of the track. And one of those big boulders had just come loose, and it was just like rolling in the pocket.
Mm.
And same line, same everything as I'd been all weekend. I think my teammate, even Angel, and a couple other people got smoked on the same rock. You couldn't tell it was loose because it was in the shadows. And I hit it and just basically just tucked the front and landed straight on my thumb and kind of popped that thing out and then right back in. And and that just kind of started like the chain of events that year where my thumb was like really bad. It was really hard to hold on to the bars, and I tried to keep racing through it. I think I went to Valdesol the next weekend and just rolled down the hill for like 50th or something, and I was like, "Dude, this isn't really doing much." Or a different track, actually. It was
I think
somewhere
you
else.
did you not get I think you went to Leogang and got second.
Yeah, I think that was it. Like, I think we went to Leo Gang. That track was really smooth. I think I, like, taped my hand to the bar pretty much, did that. Then I took some time off, went back to Valdesol. I think that was the next race, like, maybe a few weeks later, and I had a
Mm.
really small tip over in practice and landed straight back on my thumb. Tried to do the finals, and I think that's where I got, like, 50th, and I was just like, "Dude, this is probably over." So, took some time off, healed that thing up, then went to the 29er on YT. That was when the 29er first came out. Went to France, my first World Cup back. I think I can't remember, qualified. I had some good time practice stuff, but it was like first time back on the bike, new bike, crashed in like the third turn of finals. Then went to Switzerland, second race back, and I think I got that was Worlds that year. I think I top 6 or something. I can't remember, but so that was that year. Then the next year, I went to a race here in the US and I broke a crank on this big flat finish line jump and like rolled my ankle under the bike really bad and exploded it like right before Fort William. And then jumped the big finish line triple on like my 3rd lap of practice at Fort William, like could barely walk, like just went out and did practice, landed the jump, snapped another crank, folded the exact same ankle back under. Um, it was just like, it was one of those things where you're just like, you just laugh. You're like, dude, like I've been running those cranks for 5 years. I've won 10 races on the same setup, never had one issue, and then broke 2 in a few weeks. It was like, and then got into finals for Fort William and then had that massive crash, like when I cartwheeled it over the berm. So that all happened in a row. And then went to Leogang the next weekend with the blown out ankle and everything else. I think I got 2nd there. And then can't remember, like there was a race or 2 after that. And then I was at Andorra in practice. And it was one of those years where it was like really dusty. And I was like bombing down the track towards the bottom. And a kid dropped in like right in front of me in practice and just dust everywhere. And I just got off line by a little bit and ended up like shoulder checking a tree. And I did both of my shoulders at the same time, the AC joints, like one on the tree and one on the ground when I hit the ground. So that was that. And then I think that was that season. Then the next year at Mountain Creek, same race where I did my ankle, first lap of practice, just rolling down the track, chill, first run. I was behind Nico actually. And we came up over this little blind rise first lap where you just like you're going pretty fast and your wheels just barely leave the ground, like maybe by this much. And we come up over the rise and this big rock had rolled into the middle of the track and you couldn't see it because it was on the backside where it was blind. And Nico landed right next to it, and I just landed my front wheel perfectly on it and just had the biggest crash and just destroyed my back. And that was out for a few months. And then I think I had another injury in there somewhere. I don't even remember, but it was just literally like, dude, I just remember like the amount of times I was just laying on the ground, like, dude, like, I don't even feel like I made a mistake, like just wrong place, wrong time. Like, I'm not one to make excuses. Like if I suck and I blow it, it's like, yep, that's on you. But it was just these things where you're like, yeah, you're just kind of part of being on the track and a dangerous sport. So I can't remember what happened, but 2022, we had, and I was going through different bikes every year and tires and all kinds of stuff we were trying to figure out. So 22, I feel like was the first year where we were starting to figure out the bike at Intense. We had that prototype. I was feeling good. I just wanted to get through the year healthy. I felt like my fitness, everything just from all the time off and injuries was like going to take me a year to kind of rebuild. So I started the year, I think around 10th or something. And I think I podiumed like the last 5 rounds or something like that. And was feeling like by that last race at Val di Sole, I was like ready to win again. I feel like I probably could have won that race. And the whole season, I crashed 2 times. Once I tipped over on my first practice lap, I think at Leogang in the mud. And then I didn't crash that entire World Cup year, not one time.
way.
And they were some of the gnarliest, muddiest tracks I've ever ridden. And then Val di Sole finals morning, I got a front flat and I was riding down the track with a flat tire and I washed the front in one of those rock gardens at the bottom and landed on my thumb and hurt my thumb again. So raced with a hurt thumb a little bit, but I think I got 3rd or 5th or something at that race. But it was like that year where I'm like, all right, I just had a really consistent year. I rode like very within my means. Like I pretty much didn't crash for an entire year straight, made it through all the rounds, podium pretty much all the last races. We had been developing that new bike at Intense. I'm like, this is the bike that I need to start winning again. Like we were, everything was coming together perfect for 23. Had a really good off season, spent a ton of time in Tennessee, riding, training, testing. Came into 23, like, all right, we're going to battle for the title again. Like finally, like we're back. And then, 3rd practice run at Switzerland. I had that UG and blew my elbow out and then was off the bike for like almost a year. So it was like, here we are. We're back. So it's ups and downs, man. It's a crazy sport that we race, and sometimes she goes and sometimes she really don't go. So you just make the most of it, and what else can you do?
what was the, I mean, where did you find the motivation? Where did that come from to keep picking yourself back up and like starting again? Because I mean, that's just a ridiculous run of, I mean, like it's actually unbelievable.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, I'm going through it right now. I just had another little finger surgery from an issue I've been dealing with for a couple of years and got it fixed right after Christmas and just got back on the bike a couple of weeks ago. So I'm hoping I'll be good enough to race here in a few weeks at our race at Windrock and then build into the middle of the season. Last year was interesting because I felt really good after not riding for so long. New bike, new everything. I just kind of gelled with everything pretty quick. But I think the motivation just comes from like one, I love it. It's just fun. Like I love riding my bike. I can't think of if I think about like what else am I gonna do? Like there's a lot of other things that I could do, but nothing. I don't enjoy anything as much as I like riding. And I think when we talked about earlier, that's part of where I've definitely matured, the last 5+ years is like enjoying what I have and understanding like to be able to be this good at something that I truly love doing, when that door closes and I'm done racing, it's like I won't be able to ever do it at that level again and I'll definitely miss it. So it's like while I can still do it, I really want to do it. I've been able to kind of set my program up in a way where it's really enjoyable. Like it's a little more I don't know, casual. I got a lot of people around me that are just kind of friends. And I've been on so many good teams. I've never been on a team that I didn't enjoy, but I feel like now, like just the setup we have is a bit low key, it's just pretty chill, it makes it fun. My wife travels with me to pretty much all the races. So that makes being on the road, a little bit easier for sure. Um, and yeah, so I mean, part of it is it's a job and I make a good living at it. And to make a good living doing something that I really love doing is like, yeah, I kind of feel like I want to do it as long as I can. As soon as I feel like I can't be competitive and be challenging for podiums and wins, then I'll be over it because I don't want to fill the pack, so to speak. But I feel like I've still got winning speed in me. I just got to get things to kind of line up a little bit and get a healthy streak and kind of get things in order. So that's the hope. This year, I've definitely got a schedule that will be pretty fun. Like it's mostly North American based, probably 7 of the 10 World Cups I think we'll do, and kind of scheduled it to where, I don't have to be in Europe for the whole summer. I can just kind of go over, do 2 races, come back for a little bit, race here, go over there, do 2 races, come back, race here for a bit. So trying to set my schedule up that it can be, sustainable because we have been racing for a lot of years. So trying to keep the fun in it, trying to give myself the opportunity to compete at the highest level and kind of balance life and everything at the same time. So it's just fun, dude. That's really it. Like I enjoy it. As soon as I get back on my bike after a year, I'm like, dude, this is awesome. So if I stop stop liking to ride my bike, or I stop being competitive, then I'll probably quit. But as long as those 2 things are happening, I'm good.
So, do you feel like you can win this year again? And also, in general, how much harder do you think it is to win nowadays as opposed to like, 2011, 2012?
Um, yeah, I think the top guys are the top guys. They're always going to be, really fast. I remember like even in 11 and 12, like when Greg was on or Sam Hill or some of these guys, it was hard. I think now the depth is just really gnarly. Like there's, not 3 guys that can win on a dry day. It's probably a lot more. I mean, you still have those standouts. So it would be like, Loic, Amory, some of those dudes that are going to be pretty hard to beat. Like you still kind of have those couple of guys that'll probably win more races, but you got a lot of guys that could win a race for sure. And the time gaps I feel like are really tight. So yeah, I think the depth is there. I think everybody is like checking all the boxes now. I think a lot more people, like if you were to go back in 2011 or 2012 and find the people that really had a training program together and all that, now it's like if you're in the top 20, the top 60, probably you're like all in on trying to make this thing happen. So I think the depth is definitely a bit deeper now. I also think that there are more good bikes and teams than there were in 2011 and 2012. Like back then, I think there were like legitimately bad bikes, like where you're like, there's a couple of good bikes and some bad bikes. Now it's like you probably got 10 brands that are, all in on trying to make World Cup race winning bikes and throwing everything at it. I think that the equipment has gotten really competitive where there's a lot of good products. So to find an equipment advantage now, I think is harder than it probably has ever been. Um, yeah, I think those are probably the differences that stand out in my head the most.
I remember, so I noticed that with the depth that you mentioned there, because 2017, I was 21st of Val I was 13 seconds behind you. And in 2021, I think when they had Worlds, or 22, I can't remember. I looked at the times, and if you were 13 seconds back, you weren't 21st, you were 51st.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like, that is insane, actually. And it's only a few years. It's like 3-4 years, and the whole sport has changed. I mean, because like it's not. I don't feel like you feel like you're going the same speed or faster, but then it's just you got all these bloody Frenchies coming in and
Freaking Frenchies, man. Yep, it is crazy. Like you look at the qualifying gap sometimes, and it's like I've won races by bigger gaps than what the qualifying gap is. Like it's just tight, man. Like a lot of guys going fast. If you're off a couple of seconds, it's not going to be 1 or 2 spots. It might be 15 spots in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy how tight it is. But yeah,
It sounds
yeah.
It sounds bad from the outside as well, because like people are, if people ask you how you did, and then you like, you tell them whatever if you got like 15th, and they're like, oh, but it's like you could be like 2 seconds back.
Yeah,
it's like
for sure.
nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like one tiny mistake, and that's it's just insane.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean it's tight, but yeah, I think to answer your question, yeah, I feel like I still can win. I wouldn't say I surprised myself last year, but I was off the bike pretty much for an entire year. Like I rode a little bit at a few times in there, and then had to kind of like I had some complications with my elbow where I had to like take a few more months off. Right about the time I was ready to start training and riding again was like basically just after Poland last year. Like my plan was to come home from Poland, get back on the bike and be back within, a month or two. And somehow I still don't know what the heck happened, but I ended up like having some really gnarly bone bruising in one of my right foot. I think it's from like all the hours and strain that I was like working out at the bike park, like hiking around all the time. We were in Poland and I walked the track and I kind of jumped off that like big finish line bridge. And I didn't feel any pain in my foot when I landed, but I woke up the next morning and like couldn't walk and was like crutching around the rest of the weekend and got home and got an MRI. And my PT guy was like, dude, like this is weird because usually these injuries only happen in like marathon runners and stuff like that. Like, what are you doing? That's like, well, we've been working a lot. And but anyway, so that had me off the bike for a few more months. So it was about it was like Crankworx when I got back on the bike just before that. It was a year, maybe even a little more. And I got back, felt good straight away. It was brand new bike, new suspension, like a lot of new stuff. And did national champs maybe 3 weeks back on the bike and got second. And then did that World Cup. I really wanted to race Worlds in Andorra. I feel like that track for me would have been very interesting, even though I was like out of shape and just barely back on the bike. Like, I really feel like I don't know if I could have won it, but I think I could have got on the podium. But that didn't work out. That's a whole other story with USA Cycling, but we didn't get on the team. But yeah, went to Ludenville and qualified, which was cool. That was my only goal. Like I knew I was going to struggle there. Like my fitness, like that was another thing last year is I've never stopped training really since I started racing mountain bikes. Like I've always just loved to train. Like I'm the guy that can go through a World Cup season, win the last World Cup, go home, and I'm probably back in the gym within 2 or 3 days, at least just moving around a little bit. Like I just like to move and be in the gym and do that stuff. Um, when I hurt my elbow, I thought I would be able to be back on the bike in like 3 months, which is funny now thinking about it, but so after surgery, I was in PT. Dude, I was hammering on the training for like the first 2 or 3 months after surgery, just like if I can just get back towards the end of the season, like I don't wanna give up the whole season, and it was just like talking with the doctors, they're like, "Dude, this surgery is no joke, like, it's gonna take you 8 months to a year probably," and so when I kinda realized that it wasn't happening, I was honestly kinda just burnt out on training, like, it was that's the hard thing, maybe the hardest thing with the injuries. I'm going off on a bit of a side tangent here, but, um,
No, easy.
when you get hurt early in the season, like, you've gone through a 6-month off season usually of really hard training and a ton of work, and you're just like, "All right, it's finally time for it to pay off. We're going to the races." And you get hurt. And then it's like, if you hurt your thumb or something, it's like not like you can't still be on the spin bike or you can't be in the gym, like doing leg stuff and working with machines or, when I do my foot, it's like you're still doing upper body. Like you always find a way to train through your injuries. You don't just take time off. It's like the injuries usually heal faster
Mhm.
if you can keep blood moving. When you come back, or usually, you haven't lost it all. So for the first time in 15 years, I was like, dude, I'm just kind of like, I've just put in 5 of the biggest off seasons of my life to basically race 1 season, like, I'm just, like, tired of training, like, for the first time, I was like, "I just need a break," like, and I just took, I don't know, 6 months pretty much off. I think I was in the gym, like, 3 times. I didn't ride my bike, I didn't sit on a spinner, I didn't do anything. I mean, we were wide open working, like,
Yeah.
at the park and businesses. I was traveling a lot, so we were really busy, but I was just kinda like, I just needed some time off. So when I came back to riding last year, I wasn't coming off the couch because we were traveling so much, but I definitely wasn't coming out of the gym. It's like, I didn't really do anything. I just, started riding, and I don't know if it was the best idea, but mentally for me, it was a good reset. I felt fresh. So when I raced last year, I knew like the fitness wasn't there. I just wanted to get some racing under my belt. And by the last race at Mount St. Anne, US Open was the weekend before. My splits were really good. I had splits that were like within a tenth or two of the winning split through, I think, like half or three quarters of the track. And I knew like my fitness was just suffering at the bottom. St. Anne, I ended up qualifying seventh in semis, and same thing there. Like I was running lead pace through like the halfway, three-quarter point of the track. Just wasn't quite, didn't have the fitness to get me through the finish line as much as I needed. So the speed came back really quick. I was really happy with that. So I think I'll come into this year better prepared. So by the time we get into the midway point of the season and build through the end of the year, yeah, my goal 100% is to be able to challenge for wins. So I need a few more months for sure, but yeah, the hope is to get back to that point. And I don't want to. Maybe I shouldn't say this because I'm setting the bar kinda high, but, like, I'm only planning to do some of the 7 of the World Cups, but I'm like, it'd be pretty cool to miss a few World Cups and show up and win one and then not go to the next one. I don't know if I could pull that off, but it would be cool.
Well, maybe that's a good strategy. Focus on the ones that you feel like you want to do or can do, and
Yeah.
then throw all your cards when at the ones you can. It's pretty cool. There's going to be 10 races this year. It's pretty
Yeah,
insane.
for sure.
That was the other thing I wanted to ask is what do you think about the whole new change, new direction of the sport? Like obviously they've gone down now to 30 guys, new broadcast, all of that. Also like with events like Hardline and stuff, I feel like that's something that's picking up. I mean, is that something you've ever considered? Yeah. What's your thoughts on the sport right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny, I was just talking to somebody yesterday about this, and they're asking me what I think, and I try to be pretty optimistic about it, because I understand there's a lot more that goes into it than what I understand. Like I'm a business owner. Owning the bike park has definitely given me a new perspective on there's a lot like that has to go down that maybe is not ideally what you would like to do. But to run a business and for the greater overall good, it's like sometimes you gotta take a few steps back, just take a step forward, or you gotta, focus on some of the things that to me are not so fun because you gotta pay the bills and you're looking
Mhm.
down the road, 5, 10 years. Um, So yeah, as far as like the state of the sport, I think it's great. Like the competition's awesome, the teams, the riders. I think there's so much there to work with. I think it's as entertaining as it's ever been. The racing is incredible. We have probably more different winners on average throughout a season than we've had in a lot of other years. A lot of good stuff. But yeah, as far as the changes, like I get what Warner Brothers and UCI is trying to do. Like they're trying to make the show around more of the top guys. They're trying to have less riders so that you can televise full runs and put that into a tighter package, which in theory would be more valuable to outside industry brands and sponsors and kind of building that whole thing. So from a broad view, I think it makes sense. From a rider's perspective, it's difficult because I just see things through that lens. And as a rider, I really like the Red Bull schedule. Like I like the
Mm,
protected riders through the top 20 or whatever it was. I liked that there was just a qualifying and a final, and the way the points set up and the practice schedule and the way the weekend flowed was good. Like you knew if you were a top guy that you were going to be able to be in the finals with a chance to try to win every weekend. Like you were going to have to really mess some stuff up to drop outside that top 20 protected status. So it was just like kind of less that could go wrong. And it felt like it was, you travel so much, you spend so much money, you go to Europe, you do all this stuff. So to just kind of know like I'll be in there ready to fight for a win when I need to win. It's like
mhm,
when that changes, like, and the protected riders go way down and there's a lot more like opportunities for things to kind of go sideways and lose a lot of points as a rider, that's obviously a bit more stressful. This year there's no protection, like you have that last chance qualifier thing, which does make it fair, which is kind of, allowing me to show up at random World Cups and not feel like, dude, I've actually got to qualify here and like whatever. It's like, well, everybody's got to qualify. So maybe it's kind of good for me in that way, but it's maybe it creates more drama for the sport on one side, which could be exciting and make big point swings. On the other hand, as a fan of racing, I just want to see the fastest guys all be able to race during the race and not be like, oh, like I wonder what would have happened if Bruni wouldn't have flattered in his qualifier and was like here in the finals. Like it would be, that would suck not to see the top guys race. So yeah, I don't know, man. Like pros and cons on all sides. Like ultimately, I don't know that I really understand the 5-year game plan from Warner
mhm,
Brothers. Like where are we trying to get with this and what's like, I know like I chat with Chris Ball occasionally, and I know he's pretty strategic, it sounds like, and like where the next 5 years will go, and each year is kind of a step closer to like this longer term plan. So because I don't understand exactly all the details, it's kind of hard for me to comment on it like too deep because I'm just looking at things kind of surface level, and obviously I just hope the sport grows. I hope it's good for everybody. So I choose to try to be pretty optimistic and hope that everything will work out good. But um there is a lot of other really good races popping up. Like our US National Series here in the US is like really kind of taking off. They're good tracks, really fun to race. I really like doing them because you actually get to ride and race alongside like fellow racers, like amateur racers.
mhm.
So it's you might have 300 other racers there that aren't in the pro class on a weekend. You get to like hang out with those guys in the pits and chat, and they get to see you on the track. Like it's a fun atmosphere that I don't get as much when I go to a World Cup. And it's just obviously really fun for me to race here at home. I haven't gotten to do a ton of that through my career because most of our time's in Europe. So I've always like dreamed of doing a schedule that was like actually be able to do all the nationals and stuff. So I'm really excited to do that. Um, but yeah, I mean, overall, it's hard for me to say, man. Like I don't know. I was just chatting again with somebody yesterday about this. Like even the paywall that you have to pay to watch the
Mm,
sport. It's like it's probably makes entry into people seeing the sport, a little bit more difficult. But the sports that I love, like motocross and supercross, like you pay to watch those. So it's like, I just don't know like where the fun's going, what's the return
mm,
overall for the sport. Like I don't understand those things. So it's hard for me to say like, I can say like, oh, it sucks that it's harder to watch than it was on Red Bull. But if it's providing the funds to film full runs and eventually lead to, a better outcome for the racers, 3 years down the road or something, then it's like, okay, I could see that making sense. But yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
My thought on it was also with the live event. I can also see where they're going with the broadcast and all of that, but you know, part of the cool thing about being at a downhill race or a World Cup is, you're standing there in practice and you're seeing everyone like sending it down, down some gnarly sections, and there's a lot of action. And then now I think like you've only got 30 guys, on track. Okay, yeah, there'll be more for qualifying, but still they've limited that a lot. So I
Yeah.
don't know realistically how many people they're actually going to be at the race this year. Like you're going to be standing there, you're standing quite a while, and not that many people are going to be coming down the track. And
Yeah.
I can understand like it's cool for broadcast, but like I think for people actually at the event, like I think like the coolest part is seeing guys absolutely send it, like Ronan Dunn, like just going,
Yeah.
like, and there's going to be way less of, guys doing that, which I think is kind of sad. Because it's
Yeah.
kind of like what downhill, at least for me, like when I grew up, like that's kind of what I perceived downhill as.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't know. It's,
Yeah. Yeah, I know, and I feel like even that is like it's got like a positive and a negative. On one side, it's like when you get these massive turnouts for the races in Europe, if you stand on the side of the track, you'll be constantly entertained for sure. You bring a lot of money to the local, the hotels and the restaurants and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, like we've raced the O gang sometimes where I think there's like 250 or 300 dudes or something like
mm,
trying to qualify. And it's like, dude, qualifying goes to like 5:30 and like it's
yeah.
all day. You're standing in like an hour and a half lift line every lap to get up for practice. And it's just like, what are we doing? Like in reality, 100 of those guys are going to be so far off a qualifying pace that it's like, it's good experience, I think, for them to be there and be able to get that. Um, and, I'd do the same thing if I had the opportunity to go and race it probably, but it's also like if you're trying to like narrow the sport towards a certain window and make it the best for the guys that are really pushing the sport along, there's opportunities to develop at other races if you're in that stage of your career. Like it's pretty taxing on infrastructure and the track and, like what a race weekend looks like for the top riders and like, those lift lines and stuff. So I don't know, man, like it definitely favors the people at the top. But if you look at a lot of their sports, that's kind of what builds the sport. But you need
Yeah.
people to eventually get there too. So that's where like I think now that it seems like there's better national series, at least here in the US. Before it was like the national series was like pretty dead for a long time. So it was like if you wanted to race a decent race, you just had to go to a World Cup. Now, like we actually have races here where you're going to have, really fast guys doing all the races. So if you just want to develop and get ready, this is a great place to do it. You don't need to go to Europe and race all those races. But yeah, man, I'm with you. Like that's part of what makes our sport so cool is like that grassroots entry into downhill where you see somebody with like jeans qualify for a World Cup. And it's like, dude, that's awesome. Like that's the coolest thing ever. But then when you're standing in line behind 300 people for
Yeah.
2 hours waiting to get on the lift and the track's destroyed and you can't go like 5 straightaways without a red flag and somebody's killed themselves, you're just like, it's a bit of a mission on that side too. So I don't know. I'm glad I don't have to make those decisions.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's going to be interesting the next few years. I mean, it's been cool to see all these other events pop up as well. What about something like Hardline? What do you have? Is that something you've ever thought about or ever considered?
Yeah, I think honestly, this year was maybe the first year that I thought about it a little bit more. I never really was very attracted to the one in Wales, if I'm honest, because every time I watched it, it was just like sideways blowing rain and
Yeah,
wind, and I think it landed at a bit of a weird time of the year. And for me, like if you're so focused on the World Cups, for me, I don't want to do anything to jeopardize me not being able to race those World Cups. Like I don't want to go do a bonus race and get hurt and then miss a World Cup season because the World Cups were always the focus. So I try to be disciplined enough to just do the minimum I could possibly do to feel like I could really be prepared for the World Cups and kind of minimize risk and the grind of travel and all that stuff, especially as I've gotten older. But as those events get bigger and the numbers get bigger and the prize money's bigger and it becomes like kind of its own thing separate from the World Cups, I think more riders will be attracted to go do those. Um, yeah, we'll see. Hardline does look pretty fun, like the one in Tasmania. Like it's usually dry there, and it looks like it's like it's preseason. So if you get hurt, you're gonna miss a lot of races, like we've seen Jackson do last year, and potentially Ronan do this year. Hopefully, he'll be back soon. But um, they're pretty risky. I think that's the only downside of those. It's kind of what makes them cool is they're their own thing, and they got crazy tracks, and they're fun to watch. I guess it just depends on what your focus is for the year. For me, if I'm going for a World Cup overall title, it's going to be pretty hard for me to go do those bonus races because I think there's just a lot of risk involved. But if I transition more into like racing a few World Cups and focusing on the U.S. National Series and maybe some hardline events or something like that, I could see that becoming an option in the future. I don't know.
It's interesting with Hardline because, okay, first of all, the Wales one just looks horrible.
Yeah.
That does not look fun. Like,
I'm like,
yeah.
great job on the track, dude. Everything looks awesome until they built that scaffolding jump. And I'm like, I'm out. I'm getting too old for that. You can have that.
Dude, yeah, I actually asked Bernard about that as well. I was like, dude, that it's just ridiculous that they. But he told me it actually wasn't as bad as it seemed on the internet,
Mhm.
but like it looked pretty
Yeah,
horrendous.
you would say that because
But
he's gnarly like that.
but like, yeah, I mean, he does testing for Hardline, so I guess he's not
Yeah.
maybe not the right person to ask. But the one in Tasmania like looks somewhat fun, and obviously it's dry, conditions are good.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because like all these events are popping up, like also not even racing. Like if you got like Fest Series, Dark Fest, those type of events as well with like huge jumps, and everyone like freaks out because of these massive jumps. But most of the time, I mean, even in Hardline now, you saw like last year Jackson got injured and Ronan got injured. This year, but well, I don't know exactly how much, but both of them crashed in not on a jump.
Yeah.
Because most of the time the big crashes happen in more technical sections where you like smash into a tree or something.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, events like Dark Fest or something like that is probably safer if you know how to jump. Like it's probably safer than riding or racing downhill.
Mhm.
Because like you don't have rocks and trees and stumps to smash into.
Yeah. Yep. Potentially. Yeah. If the jumps are built right too, it's like, they can be really big, but still be fairly safe, assuming you can make the downside. Even if you go over the bars or something. Yeah, when you hit things that don't move, that's when the problems usually happen. But yeah, we'll see. It's an interesting one. Like I think social media has become so important now too. Um, where just because you can top 10 a World Cup doesn't necessarily mean you're going to move the needle for the brands that you ride
Mm,
for. There's some riders that can get a seventh, and you know, nothing against those riders, but for whatever reason, I don't think people are going to like be going and trying to buy the tires that they're riding, or like when
mm,
you look at like really where does the funding come from and where's the value. Um, you could obviously the guy that's winning all the races or has a certain personality is going to be valuable for brands kind of no matter what. But where's the value if you're doing these other races that have good media reach, or you're
mm,
focusing a bit more on media, and like there's just more. We were literally, again, yesterday I was chatting with somebody, and it used to be like pretty strict, like what wins on Sundays sells on Mondays type of thing.
mhm,
That was always the saying. And it was like whoever's winning's in the magazines, and doing the video parts on Clay Porter's video series and stuff like that. Whereas nowadays it's there's definitely that, but then there's this whole other world of like, if you're going to Red Bull, Hardline in Tasmania, and you're racing in front of those fans and hanging out in the pits, and they're watching you ride, and you have a good result, and you're on Red Bull TV and the whole thing, like there's a ton of value there. Like I see it when I do
mm,
the US National Series here at home. Like I'm in the pits, like I said, with potentially like 3 or 400 other people that are racers. Those are the guys actually buying the products, and they're watching me
mm,
ride on the track. I'm coming to their mountains. I'm racing their series. We're talking in the parking lot about my TRP brakes or whatever it is. And I'm like, oh, here, jump on my bike, pedal it around. You can feel it. Like, oh, you have a question? Here's my mechanic. He'll tell you how to dial it in. Like there's a lot of value in those things as well. And like with the media that some of those new series are getting as well, if you're active in racing a lot of them, like there's definitely a lot of value there. So it's I think there's, as we've seen, I think slowly, even with the Crankworx series over the last few years, there's more than one way to maybe make a living at the sport now. And I think as media becomes bigger and more of these races pop up, I think that will kind of continue to go that direction. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't know. Like I think the World Cups will always be the World Cups, but if there's an option where, North American teams can race a really big series in the US, and have really good value for their brand partners and spend like a substantially less amount of money, um, I don't know, like I would look at that.
Hmm.
It's like, the travel and like what you could do is a whole lot easier if you live, over here, or if you're traveling from say New Zealand or Australia and you got to travel far anyways. Is it going to be easier to get around Europe and race those, or easier to get around the US and Canada
Hmm.
potentially? It's like, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, it's more racing and more options. And I think that's a good thing. It used to be like, I felt like downhill was like 7 races and then it just went into hiding for like 8 months. You never heard anything. So now it's a little more year round.
Talk to me about prize money, because like I think that it's honestly embarrassing. Like what guys win for. Like Andy Kolb told me last year. Was it last year or the year before? I don't know. He won Leogang and he got like 3,700 euros, and I was like, that is insane. Like,
Yeah.
uh, I mean, what? So what are your? I mean, obviously you, and this would be something that would have affected your career a lot. What's your view on it, and also what would you think? Where do you think we should be? Like, what should be the goal? You know?
I don't know, man. Again, and these answers might get annoying to people, but I don't understand like the back end of things that go into that. So I don't really know like the factors as much. It seems like to win a World Cup, like you should probably make at least 10 grand. Like that would be cool. Be nice to make a lot more than that. I always know like through my career, yeah, I think that number, like around 4K for a win, has always been pretty standard. I don't think it's ever, since I was winning, at least that's, I think, around what I was getting paid. And it was sometimes more, sometimes less, I think, depending on the venue. Um, it's, you definitely make a lot more money from your bonuses from your sponsors than you do from prize
Hmm.
money. Prize money is like, oh, that's cool. Like, probably wouldn't have covered my trip here if that was the only thing I was making, but it's like, it's better than nothing. So I don't know. I also don't know what goes into it. Like, I don't know that I can compare like Windrock, like our bike park. Like we have the Red Bull Tennessee National this year. Red Bull stepped in to title sponsor it. Um, we're gonna double like basically what we're required to pay prize money wise from the UCI and USA Cycling as a C1 category event. I think it's like $600 for a win or something like
Hmm.
that. And I think we're gonna try to double that or a little bit better. I can't remember. We're trying to pay like $1,500 or something. Um, so for us, like when I look at it, I'm like, dude, I would love to pay like 10 grand to the winner of our race. But when you look at the event as a whole, you have to have so many entries to just cover your base expenses to run an event. Like it's so expensive to do. And when we look at like, okay, if you start at, 5 grand for the winner of the men's and the women's class, and then you stagger down from there, in 2 classes, I think we're required to pay out like 8 or 9 deep. I think the World Cups are
Hmm.
10. And I have no idea. World Cups are their own thing. So I don't know what the numbers are there. But for us, when you look at that and you add that all up, you're like, dude, that's like, it's so much money off the bottom line of your event. And if
Hmm.
your event ends up losing money at the end of the weekend, then you probably are not going to be able to do that event very long. So, um, sponsorships are really the thing that make a mountain bike event profitable, at least in my very limited experience. If you're relying on registration numbers, it's not going to
Hmm.
happen. Like you'd be lucky to break even on registration numbers.
Yeah.
Um, and sponsorships are great if you bring in, you know, if you're a huge series and you're bringing in 300 or 400 grand in sponsorships, like, yeah, you probably crush it. But if you're bringing in 50 grand in sponsorships and you're struggling to break even and it takes you 3 months to plan and run an event, you're like, is this really worth it? Like, I don't know. And there's so many variables. So it's like, it's, I have no idea, so that's why I'm just speaking from my own experience, like, I'm a rider, I would love to just blow the doors off of any other event prize money-wise, but I also know we would go out of business straight away, so I'm like, well, okay, how do we provide value in other ways? And hopefully, you know, we have more support this year than we did last year for sure. So I'm like, all right, we're doubling the prize money. Even if it's 1,500 bucks, it's better than 600 bucks, which is what it was always in the past. If we get more support next year, you can better believe we're going to be like, I'm going to keep pumping it up. But for the World Cups, I'm like, dude, I don't know honestly, like how much money they make and how much they bring in, how much it costs, the prize money. It would make sense to me that at the very least, like, your championship bonus should be probably pretty big to win one of those things, but I just have no idea what those numbers are, and I don't know that we'll ever know, so it's, that's what's kinda hard maybe, is, like, there's not really any
Mm,
transparency in anything, so it's like we can speculate, but would you rather have more prize money, or would you rather the World Cups, like, not exist anymore? And that might not be the scenario at all, like, maybe it's the difference in the top dude, you know, taking a paycheck of $1,000,000 versus, you know, 700,000. I'm like, I
mm.
literally have no idea.
I
So,
think
but
the
yes, to answer
oh,
your question simply, it seems like you should get paid more than 4 grand to win a World Cup. And to win a US national championship here in the US, it would be really cool to get paid more than 400 bucks, which is what I got paid a lot of years. But I don't know what goes into making that decision.
yeah, it's crazy. I think the transparency is a big thing. And like, yeah, I think that it's so weird. Like in our sport, like no one. I mean, I remember you came out a few years back and said, you know, how much you'd earned that year. But in general, like people don't really talk about what people get, and so it makes it really hard for everyone, especially the riders, like when they're trying to sign deals and stuff, like they have no idea like how much to even ask because it's like
Yeah,
no one knows, you know. And
for sure.
I remember when people come in from outside the sport, like my wife now, when when I first introduced her to the sport, and she I said, yeah, I'm a mountain biker, and then you know she's like, oh, I still do mountain biking, and then I kind of brought her to the downhill track, and she was like, okay, this is pretty wild. And then she's like, oh, you guys must, you know, the guys must win huge money when they win. I was like, nope.
Yeah.
And I told her like, yeah, the winner gets like the winner of a World Cup is like 3.5 grand. And she was like, why do you guys like it doesn't make sense to me. Why do
Yeah.
you do this?
Yeah, why risk your life for 3
It's
grand?
like risking your life.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, I don't know, like downhill often gets compared to motocross. And I think a lot of the downhill riders, obviously you had a background in motocross, as did I. And I'm still a huge fan of the sport. And I feel like it's it's a bit of an interesting comparison because like a lot of the downhill guys I feel like idolize the motocross riders. I
Mhm.
don't know if it's the same in reverse. I doubt it. But in motocross, obviously, there's way more money. And
Yeah.
it's also known, you know, people know if they win a main event, they get 100 grand, like, um, which makes things a lot easier for everyone and also justifies people like risking their lives.
Mhm.
I don't know if you heard that there was a podcast with Ken Roczen the other day, and he was saying that he's thinking about like coming over to downhill. I don't know how serious he was.
Yeah.
What do you think about something like that happening and like Ken coming over and trying, you know, trying to
Uh,
win the World Cup?
dude, I was like the first one to comment on it. I was like, "I got a bike with your name on it. You just tell me when and where." And I was like, "Canyon, get out of the way. He's mine. Let's do it." I think he would honestly, and I could be surprised. I think he would have a really difficult time. I don't think he would get even close to qualifying. Um, uh, but I don't know, like somebody that will find a way to be successful, like he has through everything he's been through and that has the talent that he has. I just think it would take years to find that on a bicycle. For me, I
Mm,
jumped into mountain biking really quick, but that is like really not a good gauge because I was like arguably better on a bike, a BMX bike, than I was on a
mm,
dirt bike when I started racing mountain bikes. So I had like the blend of the two skills, like that were, and I don't mean like pretty good on a BMX bike. I mean like if I was to like focus on BMX racing for a bit, I think I could win BMX races. Like I still have like a really pretty good level of skill. Because I've known a lot of good guys like Dean Wilson, uh, my buddy Mark that I grew up with, like a lot of guys are really high level mountain bike or motocross riders
Mm-hmm.
that are like pretty squirrely on a bike. Even if they're good, like you're a good mountain biker. Like if you watch Dean on a mountain bike, he's better than most dudes. But if you put him on a downhill bike and send him down a World Cup track, like it's not gonna happen. Um, it's a different level, you know. It's like saying like I'm pretty good at racing motocross, but for me to blitz a supercross set of whoops for 20 laps is I don't know that you just learn that in a year, you know what I mean, if you haven't been doing it. So I think it would be like the coolest thing ever if he gave it a shot. I think it'd be cool, like just come race one of the big US nationals or something. You know what I mean? Like just come have some fun, see where you're at, you know. Dude, I would be the number one fan for him to try to do that. I also think it would be probably very unlikely that he would, you know, I think with his age, want to even put in the effort and the work for a few years to try to get to the point to do something like that, with the risk and everything involved. But I could be wrong. And like, dude, I would give him whatever he wanted if he wanted to try. I'm a huge fan of him, so I think it would be hard, but it would be really friggin' cool if he wanted to give it a shot.
What do you think would be what do you think would be harder, going from moto to downhill or downhill to moto?
It depends on your experience. Like, that's the thing. Like, if you took a motocross guy that's just never ridden anything but like a road bike and try to put him on a downhill bike, that's gonna be really hard. But if you find somebody like Ken that is pretty good on a mountain bike already, he's obviously gonna start way further ahead. And
Yeah.
if you take somebody from mountain biking like Dakota or myself or somebody that's like ridden a lot of dirt bikes and you're like, "Hey, let's see if we can get you in an outdoor national like with a year of training." You're like, "Yeah, maybe." But I can name off a bunch of mountain bike guys, downhill guys that are really good right now that are just garbage on a dirt bike, and it's never gonna happen. So, it depends on the person. I don't know, man. Like,
I remember Bernard Kerr did
yeah,
it. Well, he kind of, I don't know. I mean, he put quite a bit into it a few years back doing
yeah,
the Supercross thing.
yeah. I think it depends on like if you have somebody that's never ridden mountain bikes from motocross and somebody that's never ridden dirt bikes from downhill, uh, I don't know. Like, it seems like dirt bikes would maybe be harder because you got a clutch and you got like
Mm,
there's other things kind of happening. Whereas like, you know, probably anybody that can ride a dirt bike at a high level can at least get on a two-wheeled bicycle and like know what they're kind of doing a little bit. It's not like you're gonna stall the thing trying to like get it out of park. So I don't know. Maybe harder going to motocross. I'm not sure.
I I mean, I don't know if you've ever had this question. I guess you have over your career, like because obviously having the background in motocross and then BMX and downhill, like a lot of people assume that it's kind of easy because you're like, oh, you raced motocross, so you went to downhill, so it's like, oh, it must have been easy for you. But like, I felt like it was maybe okay, yeah, you had the speed and you had big jumps, but I personally feel like it's easier to if you take a person that's never ridden a mountain bike and never ridden a motocross bike, um, and to teach them to ride around a motocross track slowly is easier than to put them on a downhill track and get them to go down because there's some sections where it's steep and like, it's not, you can't just slow down when you want. Whereas a motocross track,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can always stop when you want to stop,
Yeah.
and obviously you've got variables like roots and rocks and stuff. I at least that's what I struggle with. Like, because like
Mhm.
coming from moto is like the speed and jumps was like no issue, but as soon as it started going down, it was like, how the hell do you control this thing?
Yeah, yeah. I was the same way when I started. I remember, I think the first day I ever rode a downhill bike was in, near Las Vegas in, Bootleg Canyon for, it was during Interbike when they used to have the Outer Bike show, and it was out there in Boulder City. And I went out there with my buddy Cody Warren, and, you could rent, just stop by the booth of any brand and, like, take their bike for a test ride or whatever. So I went to, I think the first place I could get a bike where there wasn't like a wait list or whatever, or like a line was a Giant, and I rode like a Giant Glory. And the thing had already been clapped out from people crashing out there because that place is just so gnarly. And I, I went up the mountain with Cody, and it's probably the scariest place you could ever ride a downhill bike, and that was the first place I decided to try to ride. It's like razor rock everywhere and, like, big cliffs. It's, like, almost like Rampage, sort of, like, it's super sketchy, and, we went down this trail, and there's a section of the trail called Poop Chute, and the people that know this place will laugh when they hear me say this because 'cause they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I know." And we, like you kinda roll up this hill, and it crests, and then it goes, like, straight down, and it's literally all, like, jagged rock, and it's, like, this little chute that you, like you kinda run this narrow and it's, like to me, it might as well have been, like, beyond vertical. I remember, like, getting to the top of that with Cody and just laughing and being like, "Dude, there's no way I'm ever riding down something like that. Like, that's, like you're gonna die." Like, there's just, like, no way. It was so steep and so gnarly. And, I was a really good BMX rider, a really good mountain bike or, motocross racer, and, like, at that time, I'm like, "I'm no, like, it for sure not happening." And he rode down, and I remember just thinking, like, "Dude, that's the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life." And, fast forward a couple years, and I was there racing, and I've raced that trail a ton of times now, and you don't think about, like, as you adapt, the steepness is like doesn't really almost factor into anything anymore. Like you just slow down a little
Yeah.
bit, you know how to brake. It's like not really a big deal. You can go down something crazy steep if you have good brake control and balance and stuff. It's like not, it's pretty chill. But at the time, I was like terrifying. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that would be the thing with Kenny. Like if Kenny was like, and I don't know, maybe he'd be motivated, but
I would be
if he
stoked to see this.
yeah, if he was, like, 22 and you put him on a downhill bike for 2 years and he went through the process I went through, he'd probably be pretty good. I don't know if he'd win World Cups, but I bet you he would've been pretty fast. But if you take him at his age now and where he's at and how much ground he'd have to make and the time that he would have to do it, yeah, I don't know, but I'd love to see him try.
I think we all would. That would be sick.
Yeah, I know.
What's the I mean, you're one of the few people, you've got a background in BMX, moto, and downhill, and you did them all like pretty seriously.
Mhm.
Obviously downhill the most seriously, but
Yeah.
what yeah, I mean, which one do you think is harder? Like because I think that I mean they're all different, and everyone's like, oh no, we're the gnarliest, you the gnarliest, whatever. But
Mhm.
you've kind of done them all.
I mean, I think they're all hard for different reasons. Like, BMX is obviously really gnarly. I think what makes BMX so hard is like you have to have a first straight if you're gonna win consistently. Like you
Mm,
can't be the guy coming from eighth place. That was kind of my problem when I raced BMX. My track speed was like incredible, but I had a garbage gate. And so like if I won a national, I was doing it from like sixth place. So like that wasn't gonna happen very often. So I'd usually work my way up to like third, and that's where I'd finish. Um, the amount of time and work and discipline to get out of the gate to the first turn better than all the rest of those guys is like I could imagine would be so hard to do. Um, there's maybe even genetics that come into play that would be pretty tough to like overcome if you're a
mhm,
certain build. That race is I mean, you think a downhill race is short, like a BMX race is like it's so short. Like you sit around all day to race for like 20 seconds or whatever. Like so that's tough in its own way. Then you got motocross. Like I think motocross, if you look at where how serious that sport is and how many people are trying to do it at that level, for sure, way more than BMX or downhill. Like
mhm,
thousands of kids probably trying to like be a pro motocross, supercross racer. And they're starting at 4 years old on the PW50. And, their parents got the motorhome and they're going to all the races and they're like, trying to groom these kids to be the next Eli Tomac or whatever. So in that stint, I think Jackson and maybe guys like Asa are like the first of this kind of newer wave that have actually started aiming it downhill from a younger age and like taking it serious. It's funny now because we own Windrock, and we have kids that are out there that are 13 or 14. Their parents have bought houses within 10 minutes of the park so that their
Mm-hmm.
kids can ride and train there all the
No
time
way.
in the
That's
hopes of
sick.
trying to race World Cups. So I don't think that was happening 5 or 10 years ago. That's starting to happen in our sport now, where people are looking at it a legit, sport that you can make a living at, which I think is awesome. But yeah, the depth of people trying in motocross is probably way higher than the other two sports. I think that makes it hard. Injuries are super prevalent in motocross, which I think have derailed so many careers. You probably couldn't even
Mm,
count them. I think similar and downhill maybe a little bit, but probably more so in motocross. The financial entry into motocross, I think, is a little bit harder. So maybe that makes it harder, whereas BMX or downhill could maybe be a little easier.
mm,
Depending on where you live, how many tracks you have, like those all come into play. Like, I don't know. I would think motocross is probably the hardest one. Um, Probably just because of the amount of people trying to do it. You know what I mean? It's like trying to be a professional baseball player versus a
mhm.
professional, like, uh, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think of a sport that would be way smaller, like curling or something. I I don't know. But it's like you have so many people trying to do that from a young age, so you're gonna have to be pretty committed probably for a long time to kinda overcome that, but yeah, I don't know. It's cool to see downhill going that way though. Like, I know of, 3 families that have bought houses near the park just in the last 6 months because they are trying to get their kids the opportunity to ride really good trails and train for World Cups and, like, do it for a living, and most of them aren't even old enough to race juniors yet at a World Cup, so it's, like,
That's
starting
sick.
to happen, which is cool.
And I mean, you mentioned Jackson and Asa there. Who, in your opinion, is going to be the guy? Obviously now you've got like Loic and Amaury and this sort of bunch, but in a couple of years, it's going to be the next gen. And who do you
Mhm.
think is going to be the guy or is there going to be more than one?
Yeah, I mean, you never know, right, who's gonna, like, rise to the occasion. I think Jackson's an easy one. Like, he came in his very first year as an elite and started winning. It would have been interesting to see what he did last year without the knee injury. Um, his times as a junior were really close to the elites already. I think, there was a couple riders earlier on, junior guys that were good, but Finn Isles was the first one that kinda sticks out in my mind during my career that was a junior that was like, "Yeah, this kid's gonna go from junior to elite and, like, kinda just be a podium contender straight
Hmm.
away." But yeah, I think Jackson for sure is gonna be, like, one of the next dudes. I think Asa for sure is gonna be one of the next dudes, like, he already has that speed. If they can stay away from the injuries and, like, the mental burnout and some of the other things that, like, as a young kid, once you've been doing it for 2, 3, 4 years, depending on how things
Hmm.
go, like, there is a point where maybe it becomes more of a job at times than just, like, I just love riding my bike, and I'm just so stoked to go to every race and ride all the time, and, like, there's a point where you're like, it can become a little bit more of a job at times, if they maintain the passion and the drive and all that stuff, year after year. We'll see, but I feel like those 2 guys definitely stick out in my head. The Allran brothers, on Commencell are both pretty
Hmm.
strong. I think Max is maybe the slightly faster of the 2 right now, or at least last year, I think. Um, it cracks me up because he literally just looks like, Amory Piron, like, 2.0. Like, he's like his clone, and, so I think on that program, what they're doing, like, I think Max will be really good. Guys like Ronan's still
Hmm.
really young. He won a World Cup last year. He seems to be finding a bit more consistency and kinda chilling out when he needs to. So I think he would be good. I'm probably spacing on 5 other names that I could pull out right now, but, I think the Max or the Asa and Jackson, uh, rivalry might be something that could be epic for a long time that I think will be pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, I think there are a couple next kids. Um, I know there's some young kids coming up right now, I think out of, like, New Zealand. We have a few here in the States that are pretty good. even guys like Lockie. I honestly didn't realize Lockie was as young as he was. I thought he was like
Yeah.
24, 25. Um, I think he's on a really good trajectory. So yeah, it'd be interesting, but I think that's probably that next wave.
And obviously not in the young generation, but you obviously good friends with Dak,
Yeah,
and he's been super close to getting
I
that
know.
win. And I got a story about Dak because in 2016, I remember we were sitting in Leogang and it was just after qualifying. Myself and I think you know Potty as well.
Yeah, 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 yep.
We were all sitting there in that little cafe at the bottom of Leogang, and none of us qualified. Actually, no, I lied. Porty did qualify that race. And Dakota was so bummed. Like, he was like head in his hands, like, and he's just like, man, like, in America, like, I smoke everyone, like, come here and I just get absolutely smashed. Like, I suck. Like, but like, I'll give him props. Like, he was like, he's like, I don't care what it takes. Like, I'm gonna figure this shit out. Like, I'm gonna smoke
Yeah,
guys and like, and
yep,
then he mentioned you at the time because obviously you were like at the top of your game, and he was like, and I'm gonna beat Gwin one day, like, and I don't know exactly how he put it, but that was the words, and I
yep,
couldn't believe it. Like at the time we laughed, we were like, yeah, whatever, like you just
yeah,
didn't qualify, and then
yep,
like a few years later, he's actually like he did it. Like, well, I mean, he
for
hasn't
sure.
won yet, but he's been close.
Yeah.
It's insane. I've never met anyone with so much self belief and confidence.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, and maybe at the same time, lack of confidence at times. That's the thing with me that's like, yeah, he's so, like, on one hand confident and on one hand questions himself all the time, which I think he
mhm,
does a lot less of now the last couple of years, which is awesome because he's, like, incredible, that he kinda just has accepted he's a top guy now, and, like, but he has that drive to be better. It's funny when you said, "Who do you think the next wave is?" I was, like, just trying to pick young riders, but Dakota was, like, literally popped into my mind straight away. I'm like, "Well, he's not young, but if he stays healthy and has some good years, I think he could be a top dude for another, 6, 7 years probably if he wanted to pretty easily." And I feel like he's still doing this,
mhm.
every year. Um, so for sure, I mean, I think he could have won, arguably 3 or 4 races last year if he wouldn't have blown it a few times. But no, and he knows I give him a hard time, but, I feel like that win's coming, and if he gets one, like, watch out. Um, but yeah, for sure. I mean, it's, Dakota's a crazy one, man. Like, he's interesting. He followed a very similar path to me. I knew that he came out of a bit of motocross, but I didn't realize he was, like, as good of a BMX racer as he was as well.
Mhm,
So he's another one of those dudes that's like, he shreds a BMX bike just as much or more than a dirt bike. Like, he's really good at both.
mhm,
Came into downhill probably a similar age to me, took a few more years. I think he didn't have, like, great support early on, like, and I think he was just, um, as I had to mature, he did the same thing. I think he was, like, a little all over the place the first few years, to kinda settle in, get his program, find some consistency, get some good support. Like, it took him a little longer to, like, find that rhythm. But I mean, dude, he's a crazy, like, he was one of those dudes battling to qualify as a complete privateer at World
mhm,
Cups for like a while. And, now is on one of the biggest teams in the whole thing and like superstar of downhill type of thing. Um, so his story is super unique. I don't know that anybody's done it kind of the way he's done it, and taken the time and then started to
mhm.
peak at however old he is now, like later in his 20s, I think. Like it's pretty crazy.
I
He
think
might be in his 30s now.
he's in his 30s because I
Yeah,
think he's 91, if I'm not mistaken. I think
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. So, I mean, yeah, to be like just coming into your prime at whatever he is, probably 32-ish or something. Like, dude, he could be winning World Cups when he's 40. That's another thing I think is crazy. Like, in motocross, like everybody used to retire at like 26, 27. Like you come in
Mhm,
at 16 years old, and guys like Carmichael and Stewart and these dudes were turning pro at 16. They win races within a year or two. They retired 26, 27, done. Now it's like you have this wave of guys like Tomac. And if you look at the top 10 in a 450 supercross field, besides like Hunter and Jet and Chase, they're like all around 30. And
Mm.
it's like Tomac, I think, looked better in Supercross this year before he got hurt than I've ever seen him. You look at other sports like football with Tom Brady, and like I think we understand more about health and fitness and taking care of your body. And like, so I think as much as these young guys are getting better at younger ages and downhill, I also think you can race a lot deeper into your 30s. I just turned 37, and I feel like if I could
Crazy.
stay healthy for like a little bit of time and have a good base on me, like I'm as good as I've ever been. I just haven't had the chance to kind of show it. But so racing and trying to win races, I mean, I think Greg is like, what is Greg, like 42 now or something?
Yeah, Greg was 81. He won Worlds in 21 when he was 39. Or he
Yeah.
turned 39. I think he turned 39 that year. Or he turned 40 that year. Was it 21? Yeah, no, he turned 40 that year. So he was
Yeah.
39 when he actually won Worlds. So like,
So he's like 43 or 44. Like he just won a World Cup. Like, I don't know. He almost won one this year or last year. So yeah, I mean, yeah, pretty crazy. I think the window is now like 20 to 40. Like there's like a 20-year span if you can avoid the big injuries and, take decent care of yourself. So I think that's really cool.
who so like, yeah, we talked about all these the young guns and Dak.
Yeah.
Um but through your career, like there've been some wild guys out there. Who in your opinion has been like, who are some of the riders that you feel are like the gnarliest? Like where you'd like want to see what they were doing on track because they were doing something ridiculous.
Yeah. The very first name that instantly pops into my head that's not even close, I feel like, to me, is Sam Hill. He doesn't race it really that much anymore, but I could never believe like the lines that that dude could hold, and like with his foot out and like going straight across like the worst angle of routes and like holding something that I'm just like, I don't know, like I'm pretty confident in my riding skills, and I see a lot of people do gnarly stuff, and to me, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty gnarly, but like it's just the amount of risk to decide to do it.
Mm,
Whereas Sam was like, I don't know that I could, like, at least back when I was watching him do that stuff, I'm like, I don't know, like I can't do that. Like I just can't do that line. Like it was just like, I'm gonna need to drop to the bottom and hit the catch rut. Like that's just how that's gonna work. I remember Sam just doing some things that you were just like, what the heck? But yeah, he's definitely that way. Jackson's got a little bit of that. Like when he won Val Soul, when he won it, whatever that was, a year or 2 years ago. He did a couple gaps and he moves around on the track in a way that you're like, oh wow, that's like pretty creative. Like I didn't actually see that. He's got a bit of that. I think Asa's got like kind of a bit of that next level stuff. He's got good speed and intensity and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Like I think Dakota also can pull off some like insane, like creative lines, stuff like that. Um, and then you got these guys like Bruni where there's like a total package there. Like when you talk about
mm,
like having everything really dialed in to where you're like, you can beat him, but he doesn't have any big weaknesses. That's why I was so impressed this year watching him at like Fort William and some of the more muddy races. Like he really improved at, some of the things that I think were, if he had some weaknesses, those were maybe it. I feel like he's still getting better every year. I think he was the best he's ever been this year at times. So yeah, but as far as like doing stuff that like blows my mind, I feel like for me, like Sam was that guy. Like, I mean, at that time, maybe I just sucked more early in my career, but I just remember watching him do stuff that was just like, yeah, probably not happening for me.
well, I think that's how well, that's how I felt quite a lot of the time, and a lot of the guys feel watching certain riders, and you're just like, that is just ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we always like walk a track. Like if it's not a World Cup, you'd walk a track. Like even if it's a local race or whatever, you'd see something and you'd go, yeah, if that's a World Cup, they'd jump that. Like they'd
Mhm.
gap from there to there, and then the locals would be like, nah, like
no way, that's
Yeah.
impossible. I'm like, yeah, you think it's impossible, but then you get
Yeah.
to World Cup and some dude will just be like, YOLO.
For sure. Yeah, it is crazy, like, when you, that's what I honestly, that's my favorite part about riding a downhill bike is when you can get to a certain speed and skill level, the track starts to look different and the options and the way you can line things up
Mm,
change outside of the main line, and you can get to do some, like, really creative stuff, and, like, when you link things together right, the momentum you can build to jump a big gap or do some crazy line, like, that to me is, like, the funnest thing when you find a section like that where you're like, "Oh, dude, like, watch this," like, and you're standing on the side of the track and you're like, "What the heck was that?" It's like, that's like I've had a few lines and a few sections like that in my career where, like, you come into a section of track and the spectators are, and you can just hear it kinda go quiet as you go through, and people just are like, "Oh," and you're like, "I'm about to blow some minds right now, watch this," like, 'cause it's just like, yeah, if you're standing on the side of the track looking at a trail and somebody goes ripping by at that speed and does like, it's hard to comprehend, like, when you're
mhm,
on the bike doing it, the bikes are so capable, and I feel like we're so skilled from doing it for so many years, it doesn't feel as crazy as what it looks like. Even for me, if I stop on the side of the track during World Cup practice and watch a gnarly section, like, dude, it scares me. I'm like, dude, is that really what that needs to look like to make that happen? Like, that's and then you go do it and you're like, "Oh, that was fine." Like, but if you wanna
yeah.
psych yourself out, just stand on the side of the track and watch B practice in a gnarly section, and you're like, "There's no way I'm taking that amount of risk. Like, I'm just not gonna do that." But, yeah, it is pretty cool, like, how you can line stuff up and you do, like,
Have
every once
you
in a while.
have you ever, like, when you're in a race runs and even in the years where you were, like, dominating, were was your race run like, had you had done a run like that in practice? And then, like, were there ever times in your race run where you did things where like, you did a gap or did something that you hadn't done in practice that you just, like, full send mode?
No, for me, I'm definitely like very calculated. I don't try to go faster in my race than I've gone during the weekend. Normally I actually go a bit slower in my race run than what I've practiced during practice because you're doing it in a full run top to bottom.
Mhm.
And it's hard to hold that intensity and that like precision as if you just drop in and you ride for, a minute and then you stop. So for me, the way I approach it, I don't do any full runs in practice, to be honest, really. Usually my qualifier is my first full run of the weekend, and my second full run of the weekend is my race run. Like I don't need to do full runs to like get confidence. I feel like it takes energy and focus away from like learning every little line and every little detail. So I make sure that I practice every section at full race pace before I get to the race at some point. Like I've dialed in
Mm.
everything perfect. And then my race run is just trying to do it all at the same time. And I don't like to do more than like one or two of those. Like I'm definitely somebody that likes to like start slow early in practice and like build, 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 peak, and we're done. Like I don't want to just keep
Yeah.
doing runs at that pace. There's a lot of risk and a lot of energy to do full runs like that. So I'm a little different that way. I know a lot of other guys like Danny Hart comes to mind.
Mm.
I don't know if he still does that as much, probably, but for sure, like years ago, like dude, he would blow my mind. Like he would do, like, maybe only full runs all weekend.
Yeah, I remember
And
that.
you'd look at time training, and I'm usually gonna be in dead last in time training because I stopped and looked at sections, and I might
Yeah.
have one split where I tried to go fast, and I'll have to, like, do a bunch of, big brain math in my head to figure out what that split was because that's what I'm trying to figure out. And, Danny will have 3 timed runs in a row, like, in practice. It's not even qualifying day, and I'm just like, "Dude, I could just not do that." I'd have no energy left at the end of the weekend, and I feel like I would peak early, and then by the time I got to the race run, I'd be like, "What do I do now?" Like, now all I can do is mess this up. Like, I've already done this 2 days ago. Like, it's like so for me, I'm pretty methodical in how I build slow and peak for the race run, and I'm done. I think I've been able to, like, work myself into a position it's hard to do that, but that's been my style, and I have enough confidence that I don't need to just be blown out, full runs to feel like, okay, that's what it feels like. And this is, whatever. I know if I go up for a full run and I do my warm up at the top and I know how to suffer when I'm in a run, like I'll just get her done. And so, yeah,
Interesting.
maybe I'm a little different that way than some guys.
And yeah, that's a very interesting approach. Like I could have never done that. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I do think like Danny takes it to the new extreme, like
Yeah.
doing,
He's on the
I mean, it was
opposite
just
side.
ridiculous. He'd be just smashing out full run full and going fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was also like, I always wondered how someone like you did that, like not doing a full run in practice and then just
Mhm.
smashing out a quality run or race run.
Yeah.
Like I always find it like, because I feel like the track feels different somehow when you're riding in a full run versus when you're doing sections. Because like when you're doing sections, you're hitting everything fresh. And then like when you're hitting stuff in a full run, obviously you've now got a couple of minutes of track behind you, which
Yeah.
maybe your body position is a touch different because because you've been suffering for a little bit, or I don't know. At
Mhm.
least that's the way I looked at it. But
For sure. Yeah, and I think that's where the confidence comes in a little bit for me. That is probably different than some other riders. Like I just know that I'll be able to manage it when I need to. And some people probably can't do that as much.
interesting. And over all the, I mean, besides the bike that you're on now, what's been the best bike that you've ridden? Like, if you had to pick like a year that was just like insane.
Um, Hard to say because I would be like, oh, the track that I rode was a really fast bike. I think that was a really good package for what I had. Wouldn't want to race it now though. My bike would like smoke that bike. So, it's hard because the technology's honestly like changed so much over the years. It's hard to tell. Um, Fortunately, I haven't had to ride a lot of bad bikes throughout my career, which has been pretty sweet. Like I think back, like the Yeti that I rode, the 303,
Mhm.
uh, both versions of it. Those were both, I think, really good bikes. I never rode anything else around that time, but I really liked those bikes. If there was a weak link there, it was definitely me, not the bike.
Mhm.
That was good. The track was really good. I feel like that package, that bike was really fast. I don't think it was probably the best in the bumps or the best at whatever, but it carried speed, it rolled fast,
Mhm.
and, I made it stiff enough to be able to slam into stuff and not slow down, which is what I was looking for. I feel like that bike was really good, really predictable, like, I just those designs of bikes, those simple, what are they called, like 4-bar bike or whatever, like, they don't do anything weird, like, they're pretty predictable to me. I've always ridden those really well. That bike was good. Then we went to Specialized. I definitely struggled on the year 1 Specialized that I
Mhm.
had, which was the stock bike. It was just, I think, a sizing thing, honestly. Same thing with Intense a little bit. When I went to Specialized, I rode a medium, I think, at first or something, and, it was just too small, like, and that bike, like, was really hard for me to keep on the track. I really struggled with the stability of it and, like, being able to trust it. Like, I'd go down a straightaway and, like, at Fort William and just start to hit bumps, and the thing would deflect and just, like, shoot off the side of the track, and I just, like, go blowing off the side of the track wide open and be like, "Dude, what the heck?" Like, I just can't hit things as hard as I wanna hit it. I don't know what the bike's gonna do. So I struggled with that bike, but as much as I struggled and I got 20th at Fort William at the first World Cup, the next weekend when we went to Val d'Isole, I went to a large or an extra large, whatever the next size up was, and it was too big for me. But then I qualified second straight away with like what I thought was a pretty crappy run. I ended up getting hurt later that year, so I didn't really get a lot of more tries on that bike. So that bike was it was hard for me to tell because I never like the sizing, like it was either too small or like way too big. Like I was like right in between on the sizing, so it wasn't really a fair gauge. Um, and then my 14 and 15 Specialized. The 14 was a step up. I think I got the right size. I think I got second in the overall that year. That was the year I got the flat tire at Leo Gang. So I think I would have, and the
Yeah.
road on the rim, I think I would have won the overall that year if it wasn't for that race. Um, and then they came out with that new single-sided frame. That thing was That thing when we first got it was fast, but that bike was really harsh. That bike kinda sucked to ride, like the chainless Gwin bike. Um, we made it better through the off season coming into 2015, but I think at the end of 14 is when we got on it, and I remember we did a test at Angel Fire, and, I was like, "Yep, it's fast, but, like, holy crap, do you get feedback through your feet and your
Mhm.
hands?" And, like, the thing just felt rigid. So that was pretty crazy. Like that off season, I tested with Brad Benedict over at Specialized. Like he was really the guy that him and I like just kind of like he understood what I was looking for. We did a bunch of testing. They were working with McLaren on like carbon stiffness stuff at the time. So we put sensors on the bike and basically found out like the stiffness of the carbon and something with a link was just like not, and it just made for a really harsh ride. So they kind of massaged a different link and I think a different layup on some stuff and got that bike to just be a little more compliant. So that was the 2015 bike, the chainless bike. That was like the newer version of that. I really liked that bike. I got on with that bike really good. Then we went to YT. That bike straight away, the first time I rode it, it just felt comfortable and good and neutral, like nothing weird, kinda like the Crestline, honestly, that I'm on
Mhm.
now. Like, from the first day I rode it, I was just like, "Yeah, I feel like I could go race this tomorrow." Like, some bikes, you're like, "Okay, like, I like this, but,
Mhm.
interesting, like, the setup's a little weird or the geo is weird, like, do we have an angle set or do we have, like are
Yeah.
we trying to get a longer rear end or a lower bottom bracket or, like, the kinematics kinda back you into a corner, so you're like, I kinda need a special shock to, like, get the feel I'm looking for, but the YT was definitely not the smoothest bike. It didn't do anything, like, incredible. Um, I felt like it carried speed really good, and it was just pretty good at everything. Like, it was just a
Mhm.
very comfortable, well-rounded race bike, and I was just like, "Yeah, like, not the smoothest thing I've ever ridden through the bumps, but I can ride it fast. It's super predictable." Like, that's
Mhm.
actually what I like in a race bike is just something that's like, 90% at everything. Because usually to get absolute perfection in one area of the track, you're just gonna sacrifice somewhere else, and I don't like doing that.
Mhm.
So that bike was really good. That bike was pretty tough the rougher the track got. So the tracks like Val de Sol, like, when you get the big steps, like,
Mm.
repetitive hits, that thing started to get a little wild, like, it was just really hard to hang on to. It was a fast bike, but it would, like, beat you to death. Like, I never remember feeling like that bike was smooth, like, ever. Like, I go to a bike park and just be like, "Man, like, it's stiff and it's fast, but it is not very smooth." Great for a race bike, though. That bike was good, then I got on the 29er, which was basically just actually, I got on the newer version of that bike, and that's the bike I won Croatia. That bike was
Yeah.
really good. It was basically a refined 2S from the first one I rode. It was a little better in kinda every way. Um, I did really good on that bike and then started getting hurt, but I think that would have been a really good season. Then we went to Intense. Um, that one was a really tricky one again because I rode that M29 and I rode it. The day I tested that bike, we rode at Telonix, which is a trail in Laguna Beach that's really rough and fast. And like I said, that YT was never smooth in the bumps, especially like through your feet. And when I got on the M29, it was too small for me. It was a medium, and the reach was, like, probably 15 mil shorter than what I was used to. Um, so the bike felt fast, and I felt like I had less feedback through my feet, which for that track, I thought was really good. I didn't have an opportunity to stay with YT, so it wasn't like I was picking one bike over the other. But when I rode the Intense, I was like, "Yeah, this thing's good. Like, I can go fast. If we can kinda, like, figure out the sizing a little bit and tweak this around, like, I think this will be a pretty good package." Um, Unfortunately, that ended up being a bit of a mission, like, I've never changed more parts to try to get comfortable on a bike in my life than on that bike. Um, a lot of it there was 2 things on that bike. One, the size was just really hard. The extra large was way too big for me, and large was way too small for me. I was, like, literally in the middle. We would go to national races in the US with 2 bikes, and I'd switch back and forth, like, I raced snowshoe that year and I switched frame sizes on race morning because I was just like, dude, this one is not working. Like if I could have just had the right size, that probably would have been 50% of my issue. I was just always compromising, riding a too small of a bike or too big of a bike. And we had reach headsets, you know, maxed out, everything we can do. It just wasn't quite right. The cockpit. So that was a tough one. And the other thing that bike, I like a bike that has a platform in the mid stroke that I can really push off and like
Mm.
generate speed. I don't know if it's my BMX background or what, but like I like to pump the track as I go, and I like a bike that's responsive. And that bike just kind of lagged in the rear. Like that's why I think when I rode Laguna, when it was pinned and really hard pack and choppy, I was like, man, this thing's really smooth in the back. And it was a stable bike in that way, but it rode so low in the travel when I got to the World Cups. I really struggled with like if I made the shock stiff enough to have the hold up and the responsiveness I wanted, then it was like you just couldn't get the thing deep into the travel, and it was like really harsh. And if I made the bike soft to feel good deeper in the travel, it was just felt dead off the top. So I was always battling the sizing and the shock on that bike. So that's one of the bikes I definitely struggled with. Then we went to the prototype version. All that was pretty messy because that's when COVID happened and I had
Mm.
injuries. So I never was on the bike more than like a month or so. We were trying to prototype, but I wasn't riding hardly very much with my injuries. So, and then COVID happened. So it just really kind of put us on our back foot for a while. Then we came out with that 4-bar bike in 22. That was kind of a step towards the current M1 that they
Mhm.
have. I really liked that bike. It was, super stable, super predictable. I rode that bike really well. It was heavy as crap, though. I think my race bike was like closing in on 44 pounds, and it was
No way.
not fast on the straightaways. Like you get to Val de Sol and that thing would eat, but on the straightaways, when you're just trying to like get it out of a corner and accelerate it, it was just so heavy that I just knew I was giving up a lot of that free like rolling speed time. That's where I felt like I was like losing the races that year.
Mhm.
And then we got on the M1, which that was the bike Dakota and I developed a lot. We put a ton into that bike. I felt like that was the bike I needed to go start winning races. And then I got hurt at the first race and never got to really race that thing. But that bike's solid. That's a really good bike. So yeah, it was nerve-wracking for me when I got on Crestline. It was definitely a bit of a risk because the last VPP bike I rode was that intense, and the M29, and I had problems with that bike. Not because of the suspension system. Now looking back, it was a sizing and a kinematic thing. But obviously, like I was hurt when I signed the Crestline contract, so I didn't ride the bike before I signed the contract. And I had just gotten done developing that M1 for literally like 5 years of like feedback and testing. I think like the entire time I was at Intense was like building up to like, okay, we got our bike now. And then it was like, just kidding. We're gonna go back to a VPP bike that we just spent 4 years building something that wasn't a VPP. So I was just like, but the kinematics on it and everything looked really good. And honestly, like fairly similar to what we were looking at. I chatted with Nico a bit. He had actually a little bit of input into helping with that bike. And the group that built it. And I'm looking at the numbers. I was chatting with some past engineers that I've worked with. Um, as well, and like, hey, what do you guys think? You guys know me, you know these numbers, like they actually look pretty close. And they're like, yeah, it actually, yeah, if you mess around with Link a little bit, like you could get it pretty close. And I was like, okay. So we ended up doing it. And the Crestline, dude, honestly, like I, I was very surprised because they didn't have like, I mean, Nico helped with that bike a little bit, and Troy didn't build a bike he thought would be fun. But wasn't like they had some big race team. Like Blankensop was on the bike, but he didn't have a lot of feedback. Like I rode the
Mhm.
exact same bike he did. But from the day I got on that bike, everything just sat in the right position. It's like the most comfortable bike I've ever ridden for sure. Um, I, I part of that, I think also like the package of the Olin suspension. The Fox suspension was always really fast, but it's pretty harsh the way I had to
Mhm.
set it up to go fast. And I haven't ridden their latest stuff, so I can't really comment on that. But Olin stuff, like they managed to find the balance of like really good like suppleness off the top like small bump sensitivity that where it doesn't beat you up, but then still has enough support deeper in the stroke to hold you up. So between that suspension and that bike, like, dude, I mean, I think the results showed, like, I didn't ride it at all. I rode it for 2 weeks, went to national champs, got second, and then jumped straight in the World Cups and was, like, off the couch basically with no fitness or time. I did 0 testing on that bike last year, 0, like, literally no suspension testing, no outside of the races. Like, I just went to the race, and I go talk to, TJ at Olin's, and I'm like, "Hey, dude, I need more support in the bottom." And he's like, all their stuff is like dampers. Like they don't tune things that much. They're just like they listen to me and they're like, all right, I'll build you a damper for that. And then like come back in 30 minutes. And then they're like, here you go, try this. And then I'd ride it. And every race as I got faster, I'd be like, hey, I need a little bit more support. And he's like, okay, I'll build you another damper. And so he built another one. And but really quick, like that just bike is one of those bikes that I feel like is very well rounded, does everything well. It is really light, which was interesting because I've been riding really heavy bikes for the last, I don't know, 5 years, the aluminum prototypes at Intense. My bike right now is like maybe 38 pounds with like a coil shock, aluminum bars, aluminum cranks. Like it's not built up super light. But yeah, so I don't know. I just gave you like a 20-minute answer to probably a simple question. I could have just said the Trek or another bike. But that's the play-by-play of all my bikes. But,
No, it's cool. I mean, I got
yeah,
like an in-depth review of like
yeah,
the
yeah.
bikes that you've ridden.
Favorite bike, I would say the one that I feel like is really good is honestly the one I'm on right now. I think it's just part of technology increasing each year. And like I said, just the comfort I had on it straight away. Like there's a few things that I want to mess around with now that I've ridden it a little bit. But yeah, like that's a bike that can go to a World Cup race and go really fast, and I can ride it at the bike park and it doesn't like kill me to ride. It's a pretty good bike.
It's fun, and I also realized Troyden is South African as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty funny.
Your bro.
Yeah, bro.
Transplant. Yeah.
You mentioned it. I don't know if you can speak to this or not, but I was just curious because I remember like after you got injured in 2018, that season you won not YT, and then the end of the year you mentioned just now that you didn't have the opportunity to continue with them.
Mhm.
Can you speak to what actually happened there and why you guys didn't continue?
Yeah, a bit of a weird one. Yeah, we're all good now. I know a lot of the guys over there still. It was a disappointing one when it happened. It surprised me a little bit. I wasn't very stoked on how they managed that, but Marcus, the owner there, like he's a businessman and he definitely just makes the decisions he want. Like it was a bold decision to bring me onto the program when they did. Like just is like, this is what I'm doing. I don't care what anybody thinks. Suck at everybody. We're doing it. And so yeah, it was a little bit of a weird one at the end of the YT contract. Basically, they had given me an offer around Croatia when I won that race. And it was I'm a little foggy on the details, but it was a very similar offer to what I had been on. And I just felt like what YT was after my first 3 years compared to when I came on the brand, I was like, all right, I'm not going to take full credit for everything, but I obviously had a massive part in putting them on the map, right? Like we took a brand no one had heard of and went and won the first World Cup and then won 2 out of 3 titles and probably would have won the third if I wouldn't have got hurt. It was like YT was like, dude, they were selling bikes. Like we made them a lot of money. And I felt like I was as good as I'd ever been. I won Croatia. And so I was like, I just wanted a little bit of a bump on the offer they had given me. It was like, hey, we did 3 years. Like I've crushed it for you guys. Like, can I have a little bit more here, a little more freedom there? And so it kind of wasn't like, it was like, okay, yeah, we'll look at it and let's chat. And then I got hurt at Fort William and I kind of just like went dark for a few months because I was like, I just was trying to train and get back up to speed. So like negotiating my contract, like for both of us, we were kind of like, it was the middle of the season. They were like, yep, we'll look at this, we'll work on it, figure it out. Don't worry about it. Just focus on getting healthy and like get back to racing. And for me, like I was just so bummed to be hurt. Like I just wanted to like get back and try to win races. So we didn't really pick the conversation back up for a few months. And we were probably like a month out, right around the time I got the 29er, I think. And I was chatting with somebody over there that wasn't Marcus. It was somebody else that was kind of like the middle person. And they kind of told me like, "Hey, yeah, we're all good. Like, just race your bike. Like, you're just getting back on this new 29er. Like, focus on that. Like, we'll get this deal sorted. Everything's good. Like, um, like just let's get through this last race and we'll iron it out and we'll keep it going or
Mhm.
whatever." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And like I said, I was just so focused on trying to get back that I just like that was where my head was at, was just trying to get back to winning. And so we got done with world champs, and even like a week before world champs, the same person was kind of like, "Yeah, we'll Marcus will sit down with you after the race, and you guys can sort it all out," and blah blah blah. So I met Marcus after the race, like literally like a few hours after I crossed the finish line at a hotel, and he's like, "Hey, thanks for everything. It's been a great ride," or something like that. He's like, "But we're not gonna continue downhill racing." And, so that's the end of it. And I was like, okay. Like,
Wow.
I was like, "Dude, like, probably would have started looking at some other options a little earlier, like, if I would have known that." So, I wasn't super happy with that, obviously. But
That's insane.
maybe I could have pushed harder earlier or whatever is their decision to make, but I was like, I was a little salty on that one. Um, so I was like, okay, well, thanks, dude. And, at the time, like Martin was managing the whole program. YT sponsored the program, and we used Martin's vehicle. He was team manager, that whole thing. And so in my mind, I was like, okay, well, all right, we have an incredible group of co-sponsors with all the other brands I rode for, the entire team infrastructure that I had built with Martin, the staff, our riders, everything was there. So it was like, okay, well, we'll just go find a new frame brand and we'll plug it into our existing package of a program. And like, okay, I just need to find a bike that I feel like can go fast. So I talked to Martin, and I don't really want to dig into the weeds. Martin and I are all good. But basically Martin had a deal going on kind of behind the scenes with YT, and they decided to stay together and keep some things going. And so within a couple of days, that was the rest of my program and the
Dude.
frame deal. And I was like, dude, like, so anyway, so I was in a spot where I still had incredible support from, E13, TRP, all of our brands. Um, I needed a race program. I wanted to run my own team still. So I needed somebody to manage that program for me, and I needed a frame deal. So I actually reached out to Jeff Stieber. I think it was literally that night, after I had the conversation with YT. I went back to the hotel room, and I think I picked up the phone and called Jeff, because Jeff and I had always chatted for years about like how cool it would be if I could get on Intense somehow, because I lived like 10 minutes from him,
Mhm.
right there by Temecula. I was a huge fan of the brand. I think they were a fan of me. Like, we were just like, we would always chat in passing, and like we'd even talked, I think like earlier in that year, or the previous year, I can't remember, at some point, like almost a little more serious, where he was like, "Hey, we're kind of working on some stuff. Like, we might be open to something, but it's just maybe like I need some more time. But keep it in mind, I'm not ready now." But I think they had some new investors coming in, and they were looking to change some things up. And I was like, "Cool, man. Well, keep me posted. You never know." And so I called him and was like, "Hey, man, I would be interested in chatting for next year. There might be an opportunity." And he was like, "It's interesting you're calling. We've just had some big meetings recently, and this might actually be possible. Like, basically, like, come see me when you get back into California and we'll chat." And so, anyways, long story short, that ended up working out. It was good timing for them. And so they ended up being the frame brand. And then Todd Shumlick, which was my fitness coach for a while, he was running the Norco factory racing team. I called him because his contract was up and he wasn't continuing with Norco. And I was like, "Hey man, like I need basically a team manager to run my program for me. I have the frame deal. I have all the other sponsors. I have the budget. Everything's figured out. I just need somebody to run my program for me." And I knew him really well, obviously. And he was like, dude, I'm in, let's do it. So that was basically our 5-year run with Intense, and 1 year at Crestline last year. So
Dude,
yeah,
yeah,
crazy,
wild
man.
roller coaster.
A lot of stuff that happens, lots of behind the stuff with brands, highs and lows, things that are really cool and things that sometimes aren't very cool. But it's you know, if you race as long as I've raced and done all this stuff,
Mhm.
it's like it's just part of a career. And at the end of the day, everybody's trying to make the decisions they believe are best for themselves. So I don't hold any hard feelings. I'm cool with everybody, even if some of the things back then were a bit annoying at the moment.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be a little bit of a surprise, given that yeah, you were like the guy at the time.
Yeah.
But I was gonna ask you also what about what's on the cards next, and I'm assuming, I mean, obviously now you're full blown into the whole Windrock into the bike park and all that. How did that all sort of come about? Because you moved across the country, like it was,
Mhm.
yeah, quite a big thing.
Yeah, yeah, the move came about a little bit through, when COVID happened. My wife and I, Lauren, we got married in July 2020, like right in the middle of COVID. And the week after we got married, we drove to Montana, and that's where she was born and raised. So we went to go visit there, and I'd never been. I lived in Colorado for a couple years when I was riding for Yeti the first few years. But I just, dude, I like love Montana. Like it was just the second we kind of rolled into town there where we were going, I was like, dude, this is the best place I've ever been. Like I really liked it. So we were looking at real estate and pretty quick. I was, and my CPA is a good buddy of mine, and he has a house there, and he was like, hey, dude, if you could buy a house here and be here for 6 months of the year to have residency, you would probably save enough in taxes to like pay for your house payment here. It's like, if you wanted to, just a heads up. And I was like, huh. I was like, well, that'd be pretty cool. So that kind of just more got the conversation going. So we started spending quite a bit of time in Montana. And during COVID, dude, things were crazy. And we don't got to dig into it too crazy, but like California was like mental. It was full lockdown. Everybody'd yell at you if you went anywhere without a mask. Like
Mhm.
it was like, I'm not an angry person. I'm pretty chill. And like, there's a lot of days where I'm like, dude, I'm about to strangle somebody. Like, it's like, you guys are too much. You're pushing me to the limit. And so we'd go to Montana, and it was like, dude, it was just like you could breathe easy. Like everybody
Mm.
was friendly. It was just normal life. Like people took their precautions if they wanted to, but it was just like and then you'd land back in California in LAX and just like madness. And it was like such a polar opposite comparison. And around the same time in 2021, we came out here for the Tennessee National for the first time. And Tennessee was the same thing. Like people were just so friendly. There was so many less people. The riding was epic at the bike park. Like people, it was just like a good vibe. And so we bought a really small house near the bike park that I was looking to try to bump my kind of program up in the off season and ride better trails. Um, and so we started spending quite a bit of time here and in Montana. And just every time we went back to California, we were just like, dude, like Lauren and I were like, I just feel like stressed here. It's like heavy. Like it's just
Mhm.
like there's so many people. Everybody's like angry. Not everybody. So much of California I still love. But in comparison, it was
Yeah.
definitely like a way chiller vibe in Montana or Tennessee than when we went back to California. And it was so expensive. It was so much like more affordable out here in ways. And like just going back and forth after a while, we had a friend group, kind of a church group of ours, a lot of my best friends, and we're kind of all honestly in the same spot where like they've all got families and kids, and with the lockdowns and the rules and the mandates and all the stuff, they were kind of like, man, I like a lot of them were from the South originally, and they were like, we're kind of over this. Like, we don't really want to be here anymore. And so like literally like some of our best friends all were like, they all work from home too. And they were like, well, we should move. Where are we going? And I was like, well, we're spending a lot of time in Montana and Tennessee. Both of those places are awesome. I don't think I could do Montana full time because I can't ride there for like 7 months of the year with the weather or whatever, 5 months at least. But I was like, Tennessee is pretty sweet. And so some of our friends, we came and started looking at houses here around Nashville, and we just really liked it. The pace of life, the cost of living, everything was really good. Windrock, the riding was awesome. So I had that covered. So yeah, we had finished that house in California that I was building that I thought I would never leave ever. And we sold it and moved out here. We bought a place near Nashville. And now we kind of split time between here in the winters and more Montana in the summer. And dude, we love it. It's really good. I definitely miss some things about California, especially like the desert and just the views, like the wide open views everywhere. I get that at our Montana house, so I kind of get my fix there. But it's yeah, dude, Tennessee living's good. Everybody's super friendly. I grew up in a really small kind of like desert town, you know, horse community, and it definitely feels more like that out here and in Montana. So as I've gotten older and I've gotten married and kind of settled down, like, you know, this is definitely a more the life that we like to live. So anyways, yeah, moved out here, did that. And then Windrock was just from riding and training out there a bunch, like pretty much almost like solely, like that was the only place I rode and trained most of the last couple of years. I just really liked the bike park, the people there, the vibe. I had chatted with Sean a little bit, who was the previous owner. And honestly, like when I hurt my elbow, I had nothing to do. And so my wife laughs at me. She's like, you can't have off time because I can't sit still. So I had my surgery and it was like 2 weeks later. And I was like, I think we should try to take over the bike park. And my wife's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I've been chatting with Sean a little bit. I think he wants to switch it up. I think we should take it over and try to figure that out. And so it's basically how it happened. Like when I was hurt, I just I ended up you know, chatting with Sean a bit, and we kind of came to an agreement to take over the lease that he had with the park. And yeah, I really just did it because I thought it would be fun. I felt like we could invest in the park and try to continue to grow it. I really like riding and training and spending time there. So it was just like for me, for something to do, like as I transition over the next, you know, 5 years or so, I was like, I thought it'd be something sweet. So that's kind of how that came about. And it's
Right.
been a lot of work. I don't know if I fully understood how much work that was gonna be. I'm like, "Yeah, we're gonna build cool trails, and it's gonna be the best thing." It's like for the first year, we were building, like, roads and parking lots and bike shops and infrastructure, and it's been a massive amount of work, and we're kinda just now getting to the point where it feels like it's starting to pay off. Like, we're getting to be able to, like, really start focusing on the trails. And this event we're doing here in a couple weeks with Red Bull coming on as title sponsor, that's been amazing. You know, we got like a ton of the top riders coming out to race, and so that's really cool. So it's yeah, it's been cool. Learned a lot, had a lot of good context for growth on a personal level as well. And yeah, it's been sweet.
Would be sick to. I'd love to get out there at some point.
Yeah, do it.
Um, be a perfect place to come do some filming with you as well.
Yeah, for sure. I know we need to do that. We'll do it. If you pick any other month of the year besides this one, I can get a day. We'll make it happen.
Dude, the final question I'll ask every guest is, what's your definition of success? What does it mean to you, the word?
It's a good question. For me, I think that I try to focus on the effort that goes into, you know, whether it's my racing or life or whatever, like like contentment, I guess, versus happiness, because happiness
Mhm.
kind of comes and goes, especially in racing. Like I can be very content with my effort for the weekend and be really not happy with the end result, and they're
Mhm.
not the same thing. So I think success for me is like, um, you know, as a child of God and the faith that I have, I think being a good husband first and foremost to my wife, because I'm committed there, like having a good relationship with her and a good life there, like that is a level of success that I had never experienced, I guess, outside of
Mhm.
before that happened. You know, I got it in racing and things like that, but race results come and go. Like the love with me and my wife and the relationship we have, and kind of hanging with your best friend every day like that. It's a different type of success for sure. You know, it kind of chills me out on the racing a little bit. You're like, okay, like, you know, hot shot, like racing is important, and it's like, it's cool and you're competitive, but it's like, this is better. So it's, you know, that, being a good friend, you know, we have some really good friends here. And, you know, I think just that balance of life, like for me, it's really hard to put into words, man. Like I'm so blessed, like the career I've had, as much as the last few years have sucked results wise, like I've had the best years of my life on a personal level, like being married, living here in Tennessee. We have a really cool friend group that we get to spend time with. I get to do something I love for a living. Like, dude, it's pretty good. So I think success for me wouldn't be determined by, you know, money or any of those other things. I think good relationships, that's really like the sweetness of life. You know, enjoying sounds cheesy maybe, but like a good sunset or like a fun trail ride with some friends. Like it's really like the simple things in life that I've found are like the sweetest. So yeah, I think, yeah, knowing kind of my future secured with my faith, having good relationship with Lauren and our friends, and just kind of living a more quiet, peaceful life, I guess. That's kind of like when we're on the porch in Montana, just hanging out, watching the sunset, like winning World Cups is pretty cool, but that's maybe better. It's, you know, different types of success. So yeah, I think, I'm fortunate to have a, you know, little bit of a balance where I got the competitive success and I get to like go after that. And then the home life is really good too. So, yeah, I don't know if that's a super specific answer, but it's kind of where I'm at.
Dude, awesome. Aaron, thanks so much, man. This has been it's been an absolute pleasure, and it's been rad to pick your brain.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Appreciate the your patience over the last month and a half trying to wrangle me down to finally get on this. But yeah, good times, and yeah, all the best with trying to make this happen in the future, man. I enjoyed it, and yeah, I hope you kill it at it.
Thanks so much, man.
If you guys enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to like and subscribe and drop a comment and let me know which guests you want to see, and I will do my best to get them on. And to see more episodes, click the playlist right up here.
That was iconic.